We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Andre Mellet in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you just heard from that announcement, we're delighted to welcome onto the programme for the first time Peter Jones, who's bravely come to do battle with these three intrepid exponents of the game. Best of luck, Peter. And just to remind you, if you don't already know, I'm going to ask each one of them to speak, if they can, for 60 seconds on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without a repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. And according to how well they do that, they will gain points, or their opponents will gain points. That's how we play the game. And let us begin this week with Kenneth Williams.
Oh, how lovely. How appropriate.
Kenneth, can you talk for 60 seconds doing my own thing? Can you go on that subject for just a minute, starting now?
This is generally taken to mean being free, not restricted, so to speak, by any kind of traditional practice. In actual fact, what it averagely amounts to is self-indulgence, and as such, I have nothing but contempt for anyone that recommends this kind of policy. It can only lead to wasted aims.
Clement Freud, why'd you challenge?
It was a slip.
Yes, you thought he said
Yes,
wastage twice.
wastage and then wasted.
Yes, very clever.
You see?
Yes, all right, Kenneth.
She got it and she went white. Look at her.
Clement Freud went slightly white too, because he realized he'd be too keen with the challenge. So, as I disagree with the challenge, Kenneth, you gain a point, you keep the subject, and you have 37 seconds left for doing my own thing, starting now.
Yes, contrary to what is contemporarily preached, it should be doing somebody else's thing. We should all be thinking not of self, or the indulgence of the personal ego.
Andre Mellet, you challenge, why?
Repetition, 2 indulgences.
No, there wasn't. It was before. It was indulging.
We had a self-indulgence.
Yes, I think...
You want such a great neck.
when she's right, of course... she's got it.
Fair on
When she's right, of course, Kenneth, you wanted to shut her mouth. But on this
Yes,
occasion,
well.
I agree with her challenge, so she gains a point, and she takes over the subject of doing my own thing, and there are 26 seconds left, starting now.
My own thing, which I love to do, is to lie in our paddock where the grass is knee-high and look up into the sky and listen to the sound of the birds and the gentle munching of the 3 sheep who we have, which we hope will not be doing their own thing too near. And the cluck...
Peter Jones, you've challenged.
I thought it was, she hesitated
She
a bit too
definitely
long
hesitated.
after
It's
those
not a...
sheep.
Don't be so modest about it. You'll know when you play the game a bit sooner, Peter. You come straight in there. They don't have any mercy, these people. So I agree with your challenge, Peter. It was a hesitation, and there are 8 seconds left for you now, doing my own thing, starting now.
Well, I think it's important to do.
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
I was having no mercy, hesitation.
And I disagree with your challenge. Your merciless challenge gains Peter Jones a point, and he keeps the subject. And
Give him a point, you fool! Give him a point!
there are 7 seconds for doing my own thing, Peter, starting now.
People should be encouraged to...
Clement Freud, you've challenged again.
repetition of no hesitation.
A very clever idea, but actually it is not. So he was still sticking to the...
Dixon, no one is terrible.
The way you all behave, it gets me tongue-tied in the papers. I disagree with the challenge.
I just wanted to see if it buzzed before you said now.
I can't give you a point for buzzing yourself. I'm sorry, Peter. But you have got a point, because I disagree with Clement's last challenge. And there are now 6 seconds for doing my own thing, Peter Jones, starting now.
People should be encouraged to bake their own bread and dance and sing and entertain themselves in any way they like. That whistle tells us, by the way, that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Peter Jones. So at the end of the first round, our new boy has got a commanding lead. He has 4 points. Andre Mellet has 1. Kenneth Williams has 1. And Clement Freud has yet to score, though he has tried very hard. But Clement, it is your turn to begin. The subject is surprises.
something that you've done many times for us on this program, but can you talk about it for 60 seconds starting now?
In a recently published will, a listener to Just a Minute left me the mineral rights beneath the Crown Bowling Green at Rotherham. And I was pretty pleased because uranium is a commodity in high demand, and everyone said you are bound to become excessively rich, wealthy and famous, and men will turn in the street and say, there is the man who was...
You challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed. He was frightened to let...
Well, when men are turning in the street, he's bound to hesitate.
Yeah. Especially what he thought they were going to say to him.
Yeah.
So,
I thought it was
Andre,
lovely.
I
was getting
agree
quite
with...
worked up about that bit. I was enjoying it.
Yes,
She
it was-
cut us off. She never have had women on the show. It's all wrong, women.
Andre, I agree with your challenge, so you gain a point and you take over the subject of surprises 35 seconds starting now.
There's something that I don't like very much, and April's Fool's Day is about the worst time of the year because you get an awful lot of them. You open the kitchen door.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
I thought it was, but it probably wasn't.
It wasn't, no. So Andre has another point.
You-
And there are 25 seconds left for surprises starting now.
And that bucket of cold water falls on your head. Ho-ha-he, you say, trying to be amused.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. She's never had buckets of water fall on her in her life, and she doesn't say ho-ha-he. All a lie. She's making it up, and therefore it's deviation. The subject come to me. Now, I would like to discuss
You think the lies she makes up are any worse than the ones that you make up, Kenneth?
Oh.
No, it wasn't. She can just talk about the subject without making it too personal or otherwise as she wishes. So I disagree with your challenge. Andre has another point, and there are 18 seconds left for surprises starting now.
To find that Kenneth Williams can be so absolutely beastly to me on this game when I've always been very nice to him is one of the greatest surprises I've ever had in my life. And I do feel...
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Well, she hesitated again.
I don't think she hesitated.
And deviated.
She said, I feel.
And
After this...
deviated, didn't she? She was deviating all the time.
Well, yes. But, I mean, after this very unkind remark about...
Thank you, Pete.
Williams,
Thank you. Yeah. Quite right. Terrible. Appalling.
I think I should explain to the listeners that Kenneth felt this unkind remark about Kenneth was a slight deviation, but he hadn't the courage to challenge himself. So he winked to Peter Jones, who challenged, but challenged on the wrong score. So Andre has another point. And there are
No, he
9
didn't
seconds.
wink. Did he wink? I didn't see him wink. Did you wink?
Never.
No.
Never.
No.
But anyway, Andre has another point because I disagree with the challenge, and the subject is surprises. Andre, 9 seconds starting now.
Opening presents is a very tricky time because you can be...
Kenneth Williams, why do you
We're not
challenge?
discussing tricks, we're discussing surprises. And opening presents can't be a surprise because they're lying there in front of you. Haven't you be surprised?
Well, you be
music with things. They've had women on the show. It's all wrong.
Kenneth, you'll be surprised at some of the things you get in presents, or maybe you're not.
No, I don't get any.
We'll send you a few and you'll be surprised. Kenneth, I disagree with your challenge. Andre has another point, and there are 6 seconds for surprises starting now.
Getting gifts is something which surprises Kenneth Williams enormously as he...
Clement Freud has challenged. Why?
Repetition of Kenneth Williams.
Yes, we've had Kenneth Williams more than once. And though some people say you cannot have too much of Kenneth Williams, in this game you can have... Well, 2 people think so anyway. There are 2 seconds left, because I agree with Clement's challenge, for him to take up surprises starting now.
Removing the string and peering into the...
Well, whoever speaking, as I say, gets an extra point. On this occasion, it was Clement Freud. And the end of that round, Andre Melly has leapt forward into the lead. She has a 2 lead over Peter Jones, who's still the same. Clement Freud is creeping up a little on Peter Jones, which is a very devious idea. And Kenneth Williams, who's whispering to Clement Freud at the moment, not paying the slightest bit of attention, in spite of speaking quite a lot in the last round.
Well, I can't be expected to be interested unless I've leapt into the lead. No, I haven't. It's quite obvious.
You're in 4th place, actually.
What is great.
Andre Melly, the subject for you to start with this week is how I feel in hot pants. Can you talk to us on that subject for 60 seconds starting now?
usually rather chilly and a bit goose pimply. I have one pair which are dark blue because I thought it suitable for my age, and I only wear them at home because I do feel you shouldn't wear them in the town unless you're about 18.
Kenneth Williams, you challenge. Why?
Repetition of where?
Yes, there were 2 wheres there. So, Kenneth, you have now another point. You have crept up, and you've taken over this delightful subject, Kenneth. There are 46 seconds left for you to tell us how I feel in hot pants. Starting now.
Well, if I were wearing them, and I have worn some very brief things in my time, I imagine I would feel somewhat.
Peter Jones, you challenge. Why?
Repetition of I.
I would have given you a repetition of feel, but we don't actually, Peter, give penalties for such small words as I and ands and these.
Oh, I see.
Unless it gets too obvious.
Well, it was a bit obvious, I thought. It was
I think the best thing to do on this occasion is not to count any points because, after all, Peter's new to the game, and leave the subject with Kenneth Williams. And there are 38 seconds. How I feel in hot pants, starting now.
How I feel would not be as
Clement
important.
Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of feel.
Yes, there's a...
Mr. Allowed it's in the title, you great fool. It's in the title, isn't it? It's in the card, isn't it? In the card, and 20 cents in the card.
All right, Kenneth.
Card, isn't it?
It's on the card.
Well, why don't he take some tablets? Look. It's great, isn't it? He gets all worked out. Look at him.
Perhaps you can give him some of your tablets. It would key him up a little bit more.
I was up half the night, mate.
I won't ask where.
Stomach upset I'm talking about. Stomach, terrible.
Well, that's the effect your stomach upset has on you to make you so frenetic. All I can say is we
Well,
should
doesn't it
all-
say feel on the card, doesn't it?
Yes, it does say feel on the card, and you've got another point.
But you just said that if he
Yes.
challenged on feel, you would have given it to him.
Yes, but he didn't. Yes, that was
So
a
you
mistake.
lied.
All right, we can all make mistakes. Feel's on the card, and Kenneth is right.
But
He
not
has
2
another-
mistakes.
Kenneth has a point, and there are 36 seconds left for How I Feel in Hot Pants, Kenneth, starting now.
In hot pants, my legs, which were voted best legs of Bicester in
Clement Freud,
1949.
you challenge. Why?
What?
Repetition of legs.
Yes, there was a definite
Well, there
repetition of
was
legs.
repeating, and they... You don't see them every day, mate.
Thank goodness we
I'm
don't.
glad.
For once, I'm delighted it's radio and we can't see them. So I agree with Clement. You did say legs twice, in spite of the fact that you have 2 of them. And there are 30 seconds now for you, Clement, to tell us how I feel in hot pants, Clement, starting now.
Men of science have found that it is equivalent to run 50 yards to doing your own thing, which is hardly a surprise.
Kenneth Williams.
Deviation, this has nothing to do with hot pants.
Wait.
I think probably if you were in hot pants, you would definitely be doing your own thing in more senses. So I disagree with your challenge. 19 seconds left, Clement. How I feel in hot pants, starting now.
In a word, lovely.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Because lovely and in a word and scientists and doing your own thing is just a load of filling in and rubbish. Nothing to do with hot pants.
Well, I
So
don't
it's
know.
deviation, therefore I should have the subject back.
I know you want the subject back, but I disagree with the challenge. You've made out a very... You haven't made out a case at all, really. Clement Freud has another point, and the subject is how I feel in hot pants, and there are 16 seconds left, starting now.
Especially when I'm wearing a kilt and pass over a hot air vent.
Peter Jones, why have you challenged?
Well, he hesitated after kilt, and I'm not surprised. I would have done the same thing. He was obviously embarrassed. Didn't you feel?
So you thought it was deviation?
I
Why? What's kilt
hesitation, I thought it was, and it might have led to deviation afterwards. I don't know.
You're too honest. I'm trying to suggest that if you're talking about hot pants, it's not the same as having a kilt.
Oh
Which
no,
would
it
be
isn't.
I'll put it to the audience. Do you agree with, because I'm afraid I can't judge here, do you agree with Peter Jones's challenge? And if you agree, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now?
Oh,
You
that's
agree
very
with
good.
Peter Jones's challenge and you have no idea what it was, and I think that's a sporting way to play the game, because Peter's new. And so there are 12 seconds, Peter, for you to tell us how I feel in hot pants, starting now.
I don't wear hot pants myself very often, but the people I see wearing them often look rather long-faced.
Andre Melly has challenged.
Deviation, because he said he doesn't wear them, therefore he's not talking about the subject.
He's not talking about how I feel in hot pants, but how other people feel. I quite agree with your challenge. Deviation, Andre, 5 seconds left for you. You have another point. How I feel in hot pants, starting now.
Happy, feminine, sexy.
Kenneth Williams' wife, you challenge.
Rubbish, she feels that anyway, so she don't have off.
She obviously feels more so with hot pants. We love having her on the program. So there are 3 seconds left, Andre, for How I Feel in Hot Pants, starting now.
Wonderful, marvellous, sultry, and altogether...
Well, once again, Andre Melly was speaking when the whistle went, and so she's increased her lead, and she now has a commanding lead of 4 over Peter Jones and Clement Freud, who are equal in 2nd place, and Kenneth is just in 4th place. Peter Jones, it's your turn to begin. The subject for you, very apt, being a new boy. Can you talk to us about that subject for just a minute, starting now?
I was a new boy first when I went to school at the age of 6, and I remember I was shut into a kind of fire guard beside a very hot fire, and I was burned severely. And then later, when I went to a school when I was...
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
Repetition of school.
That's right, yes, your first school and then you went to another school. So, Clement Freud, you take over the subject, having gained another point, 45 seconds on being a new boy, starting now.
Being a new boy in the army is an event that I recall.
Kenneth Williams, wife, who challenged.
She wasn't a boy at the time he joined the army, so it's rubbish.
Well, this actually is a very difficult...
No, it's not.
Yes,
You're
it
an
is.
adult. You're an adult when you join the army. You're a boy when you join the cadets. A great fool, you know that. Anyone can tell you that. I was a cadet myself, wasn't I? I could tell you that.
Kenneth Williams, will you please sit down and act with some decorum?
Well, I was up.
I'm very upset about you. The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, being a new boy obviously can be an expression which you can interpret and say you can be a new boy in any situation. But of course, take it literally, then Kenneth has a justifiable challenge. And it's up to you, I think, to decide which is the fair in this situation, because I'm not going to decide. I'm going to put it to you once again. If you agree with Kenneth's challenge, and if you are influenced by the fact that Kenneth is playing up to you and shouting to you to vote for him, then I will disallow it. I rely on you to be the fair and final arbiters in this situation. If you agree...
Oh, don't hang it out. Come on.
I'm going to do my own thing if I want to. If you agree with Kenneth's challenge, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now?
Boo! They would form the other
And there were just as many against you. I consider it was a complete draw.
Shut up, great
So
man.
Yes, some were definitely cheering. We're going to score no points. Leave the subject with Clement Freud. Being a new boy, 42 seconds left, starting now.
This was slightly embarrassing because I was called Freud and all the others were called McGillypoddy. I was in a regiment in Northern Ireland, and a new boy had tremendous drawbacks in that all his uniform, which was said to belong to the king, fitted him as if in fact it were made for the monarch. So for the first months of military service, I walked around in a pair of trousers which trailed some feet behind me, shirts which overlapped my ankles and indeed my wrists by inches, and a hat size 8 1/4 when I took a 7.
Peter Jones, your challenge. Why?
Well, deviation. I don't think the size of his head had really anything to do with it. He seemed to be rambling on about the uniform rather than about the experience of being a new boy.
Courage to challenge. So what is your challenge? On what basis, would you say? Either repetition, hesitation?
Deviation.
Deviation. Well, on being a new boy, is such a pathetic picture of a new boy. I don't know. I'm going to ask you to judge again. Do you agree with Peter's challenge? Will you cheer?
No.
Will you disagree? Will you boo? And all do it together now.
Cheer, boo.
Peter Jones has another point. 3 seconds for being a new boy, Peter, starting now.
And then I...
Clement Freud is challenged. No. Peter has 2 seconds for being a new boy, starting now.
set in rolling hills.
They're giving me some difficult decisions on which to arbitrate. At the end of that round, Andre still has the lead. She's 1 point in front of Peter Jones, and he's just in front of Clement, and Kenneth is still trailing a little. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin.
Oh, well, thank goodness for that.
And
Really,
after what you've told us earlier on, you've no idea what subject Ian Mester's thought up for you next. It's getting the wind up. And we certainly didn't know you had an upset stomach before we started the program today. So, Kenneth, you have 60 seconds, getting the wind up, starting now.
This is appropriate for me because, as any sailor will tell you, it's the time you sail. Getting the wind up on the wings of the
Clement
morning
Freud is challenged.
with your own true love. Sail away to new horizons where the salt sea spray in the nostrils with 9 flaring. I get a lot of it. I can take it for the old. What you on about?
A long time ago, Clement Freud challenged you, actually.
Apropos?
Apropos, Clement?
I forget. It was a long
He's
time
forgotten.
Then go
So,
on.
as Clement is such a generous man when he plays the game, I'm sure he won't mind if you get a point because he's forgotten his challenge, and you have 50 seconds to continue getting the wind up, starting now.
And the sails billowing out with the wind, and on the old foremasters lashed I was. Lashed! Oh, what a time I had.
Andre Melly.
What a hard school. What a
Hey! Lash up there! You challenge, why?
A repetition to lash.
Yes, you were lashed too much. I must explain to the listeners that that laugh there was because Kenneth was so overcome he threw himself onto Clement Freud's shoulder, who sits beside him, and showed that the romance that blossomed and bloomed in just a minute is still with us. Andre Melly, you take over the subject of getting the wind up, and there are 40 seconds left, starting now.
As any woman knows, this is terribly important if you have a very small baby. And when this small... Oh, blimey.
Repetition.
Repetition of small, yes. Clement, 32 seconds for you. Getting the wind up, starting now.
Getting the wind up is really another way of saying repetition, which is a word which we don't care for.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
deviation. Getting the wind up has nothing to do with repetition.
If you've ever had the wind up that way, you know it's very repetitious. You take some food that repeats and...
Regurgitation, repetition, dear. The things are not the same at all.
I don't know what you're talking about, old boy. I know that if you had something like a
Instead of
radish...
fluffing about, give the subject back to me. Come along. No, sorry.
I was just, as I always do, have to give a reasonable reason for the why I make up my mind about a certain... Oh, shut up.
I think that's pretty succinct.
I think that was pretty
Yes,
clear. You understand that,
yes,
don't you?
absolutely, yes.
All right, I disagree with your challenge, and Clement Freud gets a point, keeps the subject, and there are 26 seconds left, getting the wind up, starting now.
Sailing across the Pacific Ocean. It is customary to get the wind up at around 8 o'clock in the morning. known
Kenneth
as-
Williams, why have you
That
challenged?
is completely untrue. I had the wind up in the Pacific at 7.
Nobody could call you customary.
Oh, I see.
You may get it up at 7, Clement Freud at 8, others may get it up at 9, but it doesn't matter. He was still getting the wind up and keeping going on the subject. There are 18 seconds for you, Clement, getting the wind up, starting now.
And on Nicaraguan summertime, it can even come at 4:30 in the afternoon. But this is unimportant. When the wind comes up,
Andre Mary, why have you challenged?
Deviation, because if it's unimportant, he shouldn't be talking about it.
But you see, Andre, to be quite fair, if you are going to try and keep going on a subject which you know nothing about, providing you don't deviate from the subject on the card, however unimportant it is, it's still not wrong in the game. So I must disagree with your challenge. Clement has another point, and he keeps the subject. 10 seconds left, getting the wind up, starting now.
you hoist the mizzen, sloop the topsail, and lash the mast to the floorboards. At which point the mate...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Because you don't have floorboards on this ship.
Is anybody lashing the mast to the floorboard, you can say? I'd go right over. Deviation, oh yes. I don't want to say with Clement Freud after that, my goodness me. Kenneth, you have a point, you have the subject. 4.5 seconds left, getting the wind up, starting now.
What did happen to me when this terrible white shrouded creature come out of the alcove in the passage?
Well, I'm afraid we have no more time. I see that our 30 minutes is almost up. So that is the last round, and Kenneth Williams was in 4th place, Peter Jones was in 3rd place. Clement Freud was only just 1 point behind this week's winner, Andre Melly! We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, these 4 excellent exponents of the game are going to try and speak, if they can, for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. And according to how well they do it, they will either gain points or their opponents will gain points. And if you don't already know the rules, the rest will become apparent as we play the game. Clement Freud, will you begin the game for us this week? Well, as the yo-yo season is upon us, the subject of the Ian Messiter's thought of you to start the program this week is playing with my yo-yo. 60 seconds starting now.
When I got my first yo-yo, the toy shop manager said it is absolutely essential that you play this with your hands outside your pockets, a principle to which I have adhered ever since. I have run down streets and walked up alleyways, cantered along avenues, and screeched on a motorbike.
Peter Jones, why have you challenged?
A deviation, cantering up avenues and everything, nothing to do with playing with his yo-yo. It's avoiding playing. It couldn't be.
Well, you see, the thing is, you haven't seen Clement Freud canter, have you? And some people might well describe...
No, but he was talking about not playing with his yo-yo rather than playing with his
Actually,
yo-yo.
Peter, to be quite fair, I got the impression that all the time he was cantering and dodging up these alleyways, which I must say, that Clement Freud seems pretty obvious, he was actually playing with his yo-yo at the same time. So I think it's a very good try, but I must disagree with the challenge, which means that Clement Freud gains a point, and he keeps the subject, and there are 38 seconds left for playing with my yo-yo, starting now.
And all this time, in the course of each of these pastimes, my right finger had enveloped around it a small noose of string at the end of which hung a yo-yo. Suspended could be another word for this. Up it went and down. It collapsed to the floor and rose slowly into the air.
Andre Melly, you have challenged. Why?
Deviation. If your yo-yo collapses to the floor, it won't come up again.
I think that's a very fair
Well, if you
challenge.
pull.
Very, very clever, no? If it really collapses...
You pull it.
Yes, but it doesn't actually come up again.
And everything came out of the string.
You can pull it up, but it will not come up the
I
string
see.
again, which is what you conveyed.
I
and
bow
therefore-
to your superior knowledge.
Thank you very much, Clement Freud. It's so nice when they're so sporting for a change, isn't it? Andre, I agree with your challenge, so you take a point, and you're also the subject, and there are 16 seconds for playing with my yo-yo, starting now.
My yo-yo is small and golden and furry, and I keep it in a little box in the country.
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Why?
Oh, I'm so bored. Oh, how
Well, obviously you're not a yo-yo.
What a load of rubbish. We know it's all lies. Deviation, Alfred.
Well, I'm sorry. As bored as you may be, Kenneth, I'm sorry you're obviously not a yo-yo fan. I disagree with your challenge, so Andre keeps the subject, she gains another point, and there are 9 seconds, Andre, for playing with my yo-yo, starting now.
A charming little hamster. Delightful company.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
First of all, we had a description where she's supposed to be playing with it. We had a description of the third and the gold. Now we're getting hamsters. What's it got to do with playing with yo-yos? It's deviation.
All right, she's gone on to hamsters, away from yo-yos.
Quite.
That's its name.
What?
Yo-yo.
The subject is playing with
play
it,
with
not
my
the names of hamsters, dear.
Actually, I do see her point. She was going to tell us.
You may
speaking of
see
the
her
chance-
point, but I certainly don't. You never had women on the show in the first place. Luke.
I think, Andre, to be fair here, you didn't reach
Thank-
the
quite
point
right,
of telling...
Nick.
Oh,
Very
shut
good
up,
judge,
Kenneth,
very
for
good
goodness
judge.
sake.
Lovely
You did
chairman,
not tell
you
us
know.
in time that your hamster was called Yo-Yo. So Kenneth managed to get in before that with a challenge, which I agree. 6 seconds for playing with my Yo-Yo, Kenneth, starting now.
Playing with my yo-yo is something, thankfully, that I gave up many years ago and turned to more intellectual pursuits.
The whistle, which is blown by Ian Messiter, who sits beside me, tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Kenneth Williams, so he has a lead at the end of that round. Alongside Andre Melly. Andre, your turn to begin. The subject, friendship. Can you talk to us
Not
about...
really much about that, mate.
You'll get your chance, Kenneth. Friendship, Andre, can you talk for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
This is something we all need and value, the kindness and generosity of spirit of one fellow being for another. When you are speaking on a difficult subject like playing with your yo-yo, to feel that somebody by your side is in sympathy and wants you to win and get that extra point, this is real friendship. And I feel that
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. Actually, if Peter Jones, I would have challenged her. Then you said the man who was sitting beside you is in sympathy, wanting you to get the extra point. You weren't. You were trying to get one off her.
Why, no, I thought you was going to say something very interesting, and I wanted to go on.
Clement Freud, I agree with your challenge, and so you gain a point. You take over the subject of friendship. There are 37 seconds left, starting now.
Friendship has been described as fellow feeling, or to put it another way, having Kenneth Williams' hand on my knee again. This I find very pleasant and endearing, and many an evening...
Peter Jones, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Yes.
Nothing to get...
Kenneth, sit
There
down.
must be.
I've had it on yours as well, so come off it.
Yes.
Well, it must be. Describing his hand on his knee and everything.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
going further than friendship, isn't it?
But jealousy is not a subject.
I know. That was a good reply of yours, Clement, but I agree with Peter Jones's challenge, so he gains a point and he takes the subject of friendship, and there are the 24 seconds left, starting now.
Oscar Wilde
No,
said...
Clement Freud, you challenged.
Hesitation?
No, because he hadn't got going and he's new to the game.
Of course he hadn't got going, that's why it's hesitation.
I know.
If he'd
He
got
hadn't
going,
got
it wouldn't have been
going.
hesitation.
As a member of the show, this is only his
Oh, I
second
see, they're
appearance.
different rules. I mean,
Yes, at this moment there's a
fine.
different rule.
I'm supposed to start speaking when you say now. Is that right?
Peter Jones has only been with the show once before. You've been with it for 3 years now.
Oh, let's have arts and flowers in a minute.
Peter Jones has a point. He keeps the subject. Friendship, 23 seconds left, starting now.
Oscar Wilde said that there is no friendship between men and women. There is love, enmity, and passion, but no friendship. And I always think that there's a great deal of truth in that, though after what Andre Melly has just told me about her feelings, about what she's thinking and what I'm saying.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
I would have said with anyone else it would have been hesitation, but
I hope, Clement, that you are playing for a laugh and that round of applause and not showing the unsporting feelings that you're displaying, because I agree with your challenge. There was a very definite hesitation.
Good.
I thought you were unsporting before not letting Peter Jones get going. You have a point and 5 seconds for friendship, Clement, starting now.
in the close tonight tend to make and a match to win. A bumping pitch and a blinding light. I think I'll be
On that occasion, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, so he gained the extra point, which gives him a lead over Andre Melly and Kenneth Williams, who are equal in 3rd place. In other words,
Maybe
it's-
losing, but I've got lovely eyelashes.
And I will say this, Kenneth, your eyelashes come over beautifully on radio.
Thank you, thank you.
Peter Jones, your turn to begin. The subject we've thought of is bangers. Can you go on that subject for just a minute, starting now?
I'm not thinking of pork sausages. I'm thinking of rather old motor cars.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition of I am thinking.
He said, I'm not thinking.
I call you out, Clement.
Peter Jones has another point, and there are 55 seconds left for bangers, starting now.
In 7 words.
Of rather old motor cars, and they often have very good engines. I'd like the oldest motor car that I've ever seen with a very modern...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition of motor car.
That is right, yes. You've got him going, Clement. It's very difficult sometimes. You get intimidated by the...
Let you go on and on with your career in and up and down your blooming roads with your rotten old yo-yo. Didn't give him a chance to get out his old banger.
I know.
Great.
This is all and ah.
You're acrimonious, you are. That's your trouble. Acrimonious, isn't he?
But I agree with that challenge, so you gain a point, Clement, and you take over the subject of bangers, and there are 47 seconds left, starting now.
I am not thinking of pork sausages. I am thinking...
Peter Jones has challenged. Why?
hesitation.
I agree. Peter Jones, you have a point, and there are 43 seconds for bangers, starting now.
Practically everybody I know has this fantasy of driving a very old-looking motor car, passing all the other sleek vehicles, because theirs has a very powerful engine.
Andre Mary's challenge. Why?
Sort of fall over hesitation.
A fall over? I mean, a hesitation or not a hesitation?
Wasn't a fall over
hesitation.
at all. He said there, and then he said theirs. There was no fall over at all. It was quite clear to me.
It was hesitation.
Really colouring the
Yes.
description.
Natural
actually.
colouring.
That's what I-
Natural
Yes.
colouring. However
Yeah,
you
it
reason
was.
it.
And he hesitated.
Trying to make it more
He said
exciting.
motor
I
car
don't think
for
I
the third time.
hesitated. No, I think
No,
he's...
that Andre Melly jumping on people before they've even had a chance.
Yes.
We shouldn't
Never have women on
We
this
oughtn't to have women on this.
Nothing to do with being a
Well,
woman.
you've all expressed
Or men.
yourself beautifully. Now, can we get on with the game? Because I agree with Andre's challenge. She has a
Nothing
point.
to do with being a woman. She's trigger happy.
That's right, yes.
And she also has a point, and she has 33 seconds to take over the subject of bangers, starting now.
Sausages can be delicious with mash or toad in the hole. This is something I remember from my childhood, and we used to call them bangers. They were large, usually overcooked, rather black round the edges, and something that we had on Mondays at...
Peter Jones, why have you challenged?
She hesitated before she said and, then after she said hesitated twice. I gave her a chance the first time.
Peter, I'm delighted to see you now are seeing how the game is. And I completely disagree with your challenge. And Andre has a point, and there are 16 seconds for bangers, starting now.
This is something that little boys like to do. Come up to you with 2 fingers pointed at you and go...
Kenneth Williams, why you...
This is family entertainment. I'm not even listening to a load of filth. Pointing this, yes, digital. I'm not going to say what she said, but the digital reference. The digital reference is something
actually-
I'm not going to sit here. My mother brought me up decent. I had a cloistered life. I should be in the tonsure. I'm more at home in a monastery. I really am.
You couldn't play just a minute in a monastery.
No,
You have to
I've got
take a
these
vow
bills.
of silence in a monastery. You'd be useless
Oh,
there.
that's Trappist, dear.
Well, you get trapped frequently here. Andre merely illustrated that 2 fingers were pointing. They were not what you were suggesting. And I must point out to the listeners, as it's radio, that she was actually pointing her 2 fingers as if they were a gun. She was not deviating. She keeps the subject. There are 11 seconds for bangers, Andre, starting now.
My small nephew said to me, let's go to the toy shop. I don't want a yo-yo.
Kenneth Williams, why did you challenge?
So she's Banger's not her small nephew. She's always dragging her relatives in. Always having this about her babies and all this regurgitation. And we don't want it. Now, look
her
here.
nephew did not want a banger. She established that.
She
so
didn't.
So she was not deviating from the subject on the card. So she gains another point. And there
You're
are
obviously on her side. You get the job.
There are 8 seconds for Andre on bangers, starting now.
There's a certain kind of firework which makes a most enormous bang. It's extremely popular with small children.
Well, bangers has brought Andre Melly from a rather poor 3rd position into a very commanding lead.
Yeah, through cheating half the time. That's where she got it.
Sometimes it's difficult to decide which way to give the decision, but I try to be as fair as possible. And Peter Jones and Clement Freud are equal in second place, and Kenneth is just in fourth place. Kenneth, it's your turn.
Oh, well,
again.
thank goodness for that.
We've heard enough
Wasting
from
my
you.
fragrance on the desert air.
It's funny you should mention the word desert, because you don't believe the subject that Ian Mester's thought of
What
for
is
you. Coconuts.
Oh.
So let's hear you go for just a minute on coconuts, Kenneth, starting now.
Well, just outside Kurunagala, which was in the ancient time the capital of Ceylon, I sat in a coconut grove, and one of these things fell down quite near to a friend of mine. And he said, "You know, they're awfully dangerous, these coconuts." And I said, "Quite right. So we ought to get a chopper and cut them down, don't you?" So we went up this trunk. I'm very good at scaling up the trunk, don't you? And I don't care, shut around. Went to cut down this coconut. What do you think happened? This horrible cobra come out. I flew! And I shot at the commanding officer. There's a cobra up this tree. And he said, "Wait a minute, I'll get my Webley." And he got his Webley, and we were all standing, so stand back, and shot this cobra stone dead. What about that? Isn't that fantastic? Right in a coconut grove. That actually happened.
Right, thank you very much. That was absolutely delightful. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad you're here to tell the story. About a half a minute ago, you were challenged by Clement Freud. What was the challenge?
Repetition of trunk.
Yes, there were two trunks.
Oh, that was referring to the elephant that was there at the time.
But the elephant didn't bring the tree down. It was your commanding officer with his Webley. Right, Clement, I agree with your challenge. You have a point, and there are 32 seconds for coconuts starting now.
Sitting in a pool in Rio de Janeiro the other week, I was amazed to find that
Andre
coconuts
Melly,
are...
you've challenged. Why?
Showing off.
Of course he is. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Nevertheless.
That, Andre. Very good having women on the show. Very good. Astute. Intelligent girl.
But I did.
Deviation, you've established a point, so you get the subject.
Listen, you
Go on,
can
dear,
be
go
as
on,
dreary. You can be as dreary or
That's why I'm on
boring
this
or
show.
conceited or pompous as you like. And Clement, you have a point, and there are 23 seconds for coconuts starting now.
I was approached by an elderly Brazilian who said to me, "Look." And I opened my eyes and saw what looked...
Kenneth Williams, why did you challenge?
Well, he's just said he opened his eyes and he couldn't have seen the approach of the elderly Brazilian. So it's all deviation.
I heard him.
And I don't believe elderly Brazilians come in anyway.
Clement, if you heard him, you wouldn't have known he was elderly.
Exactly! Brilliant! Brilliant! Oh, there's no flies on him, eh? Oh, brilliant!
You have gained a point, and the subject of coconuts. 15 seconds left, starting now.
Well, they are wonderful when it comes to sound effects, because they can actually make the illusion of a horse clopping along the road with these in a studio. I come through once and I couldn't believe this girl. She had two arms in her hand.
Well, at the end of that round, Kenneth Williams was speaking when the whistle went, and he is now very definitely in fourth place. He's still trailing 1 point behind Peter Jones,
Not you to
who
say,
is
with
3
such
points behind our joint leaders, who are now Andre Melly and Clement Freud. Andre Melly, it is your turn to begin, and the subject is gossip. Can you talk to us about gossip for 60 seconds, starting now?
Did you know that Nicholas Parsons was mad about a known win? Kenneth Williams auditioned for the young generation. These are the kind of things that people say, and they may be true or not, and we call it gossip. Most of us enjoy it. Women are accused of gossiping very much more than men, and I don't think this is true. A man loves a nice bit of a...
Kenneth Williams, why would you?
Man twice.
So, Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 35 seconds for gossip, starting now.
Oh, indeed, this has proved to be the source of some of our finest historical information. One could quote Suetonius, for example, about Tiberius in that villa where all those filthy practices went on under those murals. There is the famous account from Saint-Simon of the reception of the Duke of Vendôme on the chaise per se. Apparently he was carrying out his toilet for the embassy of Padua, and they were so disgusted, they said, "Oh, what a disgrace."
Well, that interesting piece of historical knowledge, which none of us dare to challenge,
Because it happens to be true, mate, that's why. I'll show you.
brought Kenneth Williams up a little ahead of Peter Jones, who's in fourth place, behind our joint leaders, Andre Melly and Clement Freud. And the subject is now with you, Peter. Your turn to begin. The subject is cannons. Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
They are the most
Kenneth Williams. What's that?
Hesitation.
Yes, I know, but I'm not going to allow it. Because it's only the second time he's played the game.
No, don't mind me, just kick me as you pass.
Can I wait till after the program? Peter, next week, I'm afraid I can't be quite so lenient. You do have to begin as soon as I say
You mean
now.
I'm coming next week?
I'll put it to the audience. Shall we have Peter Jones next week? You see,
I don't want charity, you know. I mean, it's too humiliating someone in my
What
village.
you holding that begging bowl for?
Exactly. It's
Don't worry.
Well, stop hanging it out and give him the subject.
Peter, you have a point, and the subject is cannons. It's still with you. There are 56 seconds left, starting now.
I'll take the other meaning of the word. That is a kind of war machine for firing shells and shot at...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Because the cannon did not fire shells, it fired balls, as we all know.
And these cannonballs were sometimes referred to as shells.
That's absolute shell.
Never, ever referred to as shells. Indeed, Drake, when he was playing these bowls, as opposed to balls, on the green, was heard to remark, is that a cannonball that's coming over? Is it the invasion? And they said yes, and he rushed out, as you know, into the Golden Hind, which doesn't mean his behind was golden. And defeated them by sheer agility, in and out of the fleet event, in and out, bang crash, just like the Spitfires in the war business, you see.
Yes.
Same thing.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. That was delightful. We really enjoyed that. Marvellous, marvellous, marvellous. Peter Jones has another point, and there are 45 seconds left to continue with cannons. Peter, starting now.
One of them was made into a war memorial. I always think that's rather a depressing thing. It's in on Hyde Park.
Did Kenneth Williams, you challenge?
Deviation of his depressing, we don't want it on this show, saying, shut up! Shut up!
Kenneth, if you'd said hesitation...
I'm not going to be overruled on this. Oh, I've hurt me out.
Last week he hurt his hand, and he's got so excited he banged his hand again, and it's hurt the same place. Kenneth, it doesn't matter how boring or dreary you may think it is, he was not deviating from the subject in the card, cannons. So, Peter, there are 40 seconds for cannons, starting now.
Situated in Hyde Park Corner, and this thing is made of either cement or stone. I'm not sure which it is, and it commemorates the fallen in the Royal Artillery during the First World War, and I always think a very...
Well, again, we're on this depressing subject. I mean, I don't come here. I don't want to hear all about fallen and wars. I mean...
Why
let's
are
face
you
it.
challenging?
I thought it was time they heard from me.
Peter gains another point, and there are 25 seconds, Peter, for you to continue with cannons, starting now.
Well, he complained that they're depressing, and of course they are, but so would cemeteries be, or operations, and if you choose subjects like
Andre
this...
Melly, you challenge why?
Deviation, because cemeteries and operations have nothing to do with cannons.
Yes, I agree with Andre's challenge, so she has 19 seconds for cannons on Andre, starting now.
They are something to do with the ecclesiastical hierarchy. I think they come a little below a bishop, but I'm not quite certain. Usually...
Clement Freud, you've challenged why?
Deviation, she's not quite certain she shouldn't talk about
Precisely. Now, there you are.
Whether you are
There you are.
certain or not, you have to keep talking in just a minute, otherwise you'll be had up for hesitation. So though you know nothing, you have to keep going, and I disagree with the challenge. 10 seconds left. Andre, starting now.
Usually rather old and sometimes doddery, they can be found in clubs like the Athenaeum.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Because she knows nothing about the Athenaeum. She's never been there. She's no right to discuss this subject at all.
But she
Therefore,
could
I will
have-
take it over. Now, Cannon,
So,
of course, was the
Cannon-
bloke who gave his name to the law. Because he said, oh, law. So they said canon law. Because that's how it all began. Well,
Cannon-
this canon...
Thank you very much. She could have read about the Athenaeum, so I disagree with the challenge. 6 seconds for Andre to continue with cannons, starting now.
I knew one in Birkdale once. I used to have to go to Sunday school, and he took it, and he was charming and made you...
afraid we have no more time. I see that our 30 minutes is almost up. So that is the last round, and Andre Melly scored the final point for speaking when the whistle went. Kenneth Williams was in 4th place. Clement Freud was in 3rd place. Peter Jones, 3 points behind our lady winner, Andre Melly. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman in Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you all about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask each of our contestants to speak, if they can, for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject which is written on the card. And according to how well they do this, they will gain points, or their opponents will gain points. And let us begin the show this week with Andre Melly. The subject is men. Can you talk for 60 seconds about men, starting now?
This is, of course, the most enormous subject, and I can't possibly do it justice in a mere 60 seconds. How do I feel about them? I like them. Some of my best friends are men. They are responsible for all that is best and beautifulest in the world, and for what is worst as well. They start life as babies. Some of them stay that way for the rest of their lives. But there are others who are intelligent, witty, entertaining, attractive, amusing. And what is very unfair is that the older they get, the more attractive they appear to be to the other sex.
And Clement Freud has challenged you. Why?
Repetition of attractive.
That's right, yes, you were carried away. You had too much attraction for men in your life, Andre. So, as I agree with the challenge, there was a repetition there. Clement Freud gains a point for a correct challenge. He takes over the subject, and there are 20 seconds for you, Clement, to talk about men without hesitation, repetition, or deviation, starting now.
It is getting increasingly more difficult to differentiate between men and women, but for the benefit of people listening, I would like to give my own views on how this is done. You look at an Adam's apple, which finds itself in the neck beneath the chin, and if it protrudes,
That whistle, which is so elegantly blown for us by Ian Messiter, tells us that 60 seconds is up. And whoever is speaking at that particular moment gains an extra point. And on this occasion it was Clement Freud. So Clement Freud is the only person to have scored at the end of the first round. And Clement Freud is quite overcome with that second round of applause, because he usually maintains the audience are not on his side. They're obviously all with you, Clement. Peter Jones, will you begin the second round for us? The subject for you is gunge. I don't know whether you know what it means, but it doesn't matter. Can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
It's a very unpleasant word, and it does seem to signal to me that the honeymoon is over as far as we are concerned, Nicholas. Last week you were very pleasant and friendly to me, and now you've got very nasty and produced this.
Andre Melly, why have you challenged?
Hesitation there.
Yes, I think there was, I'm afraid.
Yes, it was, yes. I thought it was a rather effective one, but I admit it was. It was.
Actually, Peter, I'm afraid I agree with Andre's challenge. So she gains a point, takes over the subject of gunge, and there are 45 seconds left, starting now.
I think it means all that splosh and horribleness that collects at the bottom of the drains. If you have one of those gobbler things which you turn on and is supposed to cut up the food and vegetable pieces.
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation and rather a miss in pronunciation, I felt.
So why do you challenge? Let's just have one.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, I grant that. Yes, I think she was about to explode and she checked herself.
Well, wash your ears out. I said it the first time. Go on, well, come on then, hurry up.
I was so overcome with your rude for a minute, it just took me a second to
You're
recover.
never overcome. You've had a basin full. What are you talking about?
All right, Kenneth, I agree with your challenge, so we hear with you from your dulcet tones for the first time this week. And there are 31 seconds left for Gunge with you, Kenneth, starting now.
This is, of course, the stuff that's found in your S-bend where you get your leakage or seepage, and the plumber always says a load of air. You think he means oxygen, but he means the remnants after you've done your shampooing, where all your dandruff and your muck collects. This is given the term gunge. It was invented by Albert Gunge because he was famous for chucking it out. He got this suction thing and banged it down the hole.
Well, Kenneth Williams was speaking then when the whistle went, so he gains the extra point, putting him in the lead now alongside Clement Freud. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin.
Oh, good.
And after that last
good.
exhibition, I think this subject's particularly apt for you. It's my behaviour.
Ah.
So can you talk for 60 seconds on my behaviour, starting now?
My behavior has very often got me into situations where I might be described as being misunderstood. That is to say, the outward action does not always match up with the inward motivation. If, for instance, I appear to be flying balletically about and casting gossamer to kill the wild elephants, and you say, "But there's no game round here," my reply is, "I've just invented one," which is incredibly witty of me to think in the circumstances of saying. On the other hand,
Andre Mary, you challenge. Why?
I can't see what any of this has got to do with his behaviour. He's just...
I don't know. I think it was a perfect description of his behaviour.
yeah, she's jealous.
Quite incomprehensible.
Oh, she's jealous, Nick, 'cause she's never had women on the show. Never had women.
All right.
But why they ask women on? The man's game, isn't it? Or man's game, isn't it?
We've got to have something to balance your peculiar behaviour anyway, Kenneth. All right, so I disagree with the challenge, Kenneth, so you gain a point for an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject, and there are 14 seconds left. My behaviour starting now.
Frequently when I walk down the street in my usual apparel, which is a raincoat accompanied by a waterproof hat, which has certain...
Andre Mellis a challenge, so why?
He's talking too slowly. It's not allowed.
That is not a correct challenge, Andre. So
Well, you can't accompany his hat, his raincoat with his hat. It's not proper English. You don't accompany your raincoat with a hat.
Sit down.
What behaviour? They should
Sit
never
down,
have
Kenneth.
women on the show.
No, I'm going to... Her first challenge was an incorrect one because it didn't make sense with the rules of the game.
It's
so,
infamy.
So
infamy.
you have another
It's
point,
infamy.
Kenneth.
Yeah, and she's got it infamy. Yeah. Can't you?
He's got so carried away with the success of his last joke, he kissed Clement Freud. I must explain to listeners why there was a laugh at that moment. Kenneth, I've disagreed with the challenge, so you gain another point, and you have 1 second left for my behaviour starting now.
I once pirouetted beautifully on stage and they cried out, "Oh, it's a very clean." And it really was.
So on that occasion, Kenneth Williams started with the subject of my behaviour, and in spite of interruptions from the lady member of the team, or the contestants, he finished with the subject of my behaviour.
So it means I'm in the lead?
Definitely in the lead. A commanding lead, a commanding lead. You have a lead of 3 over Clement Freud, who's in second place, and then comes Andre Melly, and then 1 point behind Peter Jones. And Clement Freud, it is your turn to begin. The subject is a fool. Can you talk about a fool for 60 seconds, starting now?
There was a vote taken among the contestants of this game some time ago whether we might have a fool as chairman. And after all the slips had come in, we determined to keep things the way they went.
Peter Jones is challenged.
Well, he hesitated before he said determined.
Do you know, he's being
determined.
so rude to the chairman. I would love to give it to you, Peter. But just to show that I am a fair chairman, I have to disagree with the challenge and give a point to Clement Freud after what he's just said, and let him continue with the subject of a fool for 46 seconds, starting now.
Another instance is when Peter Jones challenges quite wrongly on that sort of thing. But as Shakespeare said, a fool, I met a fool in the forest. But more a fool.
Andre Melly challenged why?
Oh, about 4 fools in one
Something
sentence.
of-
It's in the cards, you great fool! When it's on the card, when it's on the card, you're allowed. Did you
How
know?
many times?
When it's on the card, dear.
How many times you like to say it?
3 times, that's all he said. Kenneth, will you sit down? Let's get on with the game. Because some of the listeners may not have heard you because you ran across the stage at that particular moment and your tirade and outburst may have been lost. So Clement has said it only 3 times. If he says it again, I will penalise him. Clement, you have another point cleverly gained, and there are 37 seconds left for a fool starting now.
The word on the card denotes a man.
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Repetition, we've already had the word on the card.
I thought you were going to be very clever, having for
He's just said the word. What?
I thought you were going to be clever and have him for deviation and say there's not one word, there's
I'll
2
have
words.
him
on
for
the-
anything you like, mate. Yes, put it all down.
No, the word on the card was perfectly legitimate within the context of the game. Instead of saying a fool, he said the word on the card. Actually, it was incorrect because there are 2 words. That's what I thought you were challenging.
That's what I mean.
No,
That's the
it's
challenge I mean. Yes,
No, Clement Freud has another point. There are 35 seconds left for a
creeping up on
fool
me.
starting now.
The indefinite article followed by the noun.
Oh, Kenneth, what do you want?
It's grammatical. He's discussing grammar. We're not. We're discussing fool.
Oh, Kenneth, if you go on too quickly, all that happens is the person speaking gets an extra point. He wasn't incorrect at that moment. So Clement has another point, and he's now got 6. He's leading you by 1. So don't get too anxious on your buzzer. Clement, 33 seconds for a fool, Clement, starting now.
Less than a complete idiot, and yet more intelligent than someone who might become a panelist.
Andre made a challenge.
A
What?
hesitation on
Yes.
to become.
Yes,
I
I'd like-
agree. There
I'd
was a
like to.
hesitation there, Andre, so I agree with your challenge this occasion. You gain a point, and there are 24 seconds for a fool starting now.
It can be delicious at this time of the year. Take a pound of gooseberries and stew them with a lot of sugar, then make a puree, mix it with double cream and put it in the fridge. This is something which I'm sure Clement Freud would say it should be made a different way, but I find it delicious.
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
There's no other way of making a fool.
Clement, the answer to that is you haven't seen the way I cook. So I think probably...
As she said, I would definitely say, and it
Yes.
was untrue.
No, I think the fair thing to do there is it was a very clever challenge. I will give you a bonus point for clever challenge, but leave the subject with Andre Melly, who has 6 points for a fool starting now.
Eat it with one of those sugary long biscuits, which I can't remember.
Kenneth Williams has
We've
challenged.
already
What?
had sugar.
Yes, we
Sugary.
have. That was sugary, you're quite right, Andre. So you have another point, and there are 4 seconds left for a fool starting now.
Other fresh fruits can be delicious and used for the same reason.
So at the end of that round, Andre Melly was speaking when the whistle went. She gained the extra point. Clement
Unfair,
Freud is
yeah.
now in the
Great
lead.
to never
He's
have
leading
with
Kenneth
you.
Williams by 2, and Andre Melly by 3, and Peter Jones by a little bit more than that, 4 or 5. Andre Melly, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is things that make me laugh. That's a delightful subject, and free reign, 60 seconds starting now.
One of the things that really makes me laugh is...
Kenneth Williams,
She's
what-
speaking so slowly, it's Luke. Anyone can play the game by speaking so slowly and going at a snail's pace like that?
Well, if I
She's
feel...
just cheating, isn't she? I mean,
Kenneth,
she cheated on the last one,
Kenneth.
that's how she got the extra marks. It's disgraceful.
I don't think we ought to have women on.
No, we shouldn't have them. Even Clem's made his point.
Kenneth, if I penalise her...
You keep on about penalised, it sounds horrible. They put in the stocks or something and have tomatoes chucked at us. Isn't it awful? It takes us back to the Middle Ages, don't he?
Well, all right, Kenneth. If Andre loses a point because she's speaking slowly, can I do the same to you when you...
No!
All right, no points will be charged on this particular occasion. Andre keeps the subject, and there are 56 seconds left. Things that make me laugh, starting now.
Is Kenneth Williams, particularly when he talks extremely slowly on Just a Minute and milks the same gag over and over. Oh.
You were undone! Hoist by your own petard! Oh, that is funny, isn't it?
Not really, no. Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of
over. Clement, the subject is now with you, having gained an extra point as well. 46 seconds left. Things that make me laugh, starting now.
When you get a woman going into a kitchen using a blunt biscuit with which to stir a fool, I laugh uproariously. I have been known to fall on the floor, crushing the delicacy made of pastry as I did so, while the confection of gooseberries, sugar, and cream fell on me. And other people also regaled themselves with this sort of incredible manifestation
Andre Melly's challenge, why?
A deviation. It should be things that made him laugh, and he's going on to other people and what made them laugh.
That's true, yes. I think that's a very good challenge, don't you? Yes. He talked about things that made him laugh. And now he's decided that it makes other people laugh. So a very clever challenge for Andre gives her a point. And there are 16.5 seconds, Andre, for things that make me laugh, starting now.
When there is a really solemn occasion and something goes...
Kenneth Williams has challenged, why?
Well, we're not discussing a solemn occasion. You see, it's
No, no, no.
deviation. We're discussing what makes you laugh.
Kenneth,
Obviously,
Kenneth.
nobody would laugh if someone's being buried.
Kenneth,
I disagree. Lots of people I'd laugh at if they were being buried.
But we don't want to introduce all this macabre noting.
Kenneth, you introduced this particular subject.
Oh, did I?
Yes, by
I'm
chance.
sorry.
Yes. And Andre Melly's gained a point because I disagree with Kenneth's challenge, and she has 13 seconds to continue with things that make me laugh, starting now.
I have been for many years an actress, and when things go wrong on the stage, I do find I get the giggles, which is most unprofessional, and...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
deviation.
Why?
We're talking about laughing, not giggling.
Ah, brilliant! Oh, brilliant!
You may be talking about things that make me laugh, and she doesn't want to say the word laugh too often. A giggle is a form of laughter. Things that make me laugh. She's talking about a thing that makes her giggle. It's the same. In my way of thinking, it means the same thing. And the audience obviously agree with me, don't you? So Andre has another point. There are 4 seconds left for things that make me laugh, starting now.
actors who appear for a dramatic entrance with all their flies.
That last things that make Andre laugh has taken turn to the lead now alongside Clement Freud at the end of that round. Peter Jones, it's your turn to begin. The subject is bedtime stories. Can you talk to us about bedtime stories for just a minute, starting now?
They are interesting things to listen to, and it can be very entertaining to tell them to other people, depending on how many people there are.
And Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of people.
I agree with your challenge, so there are 50 seconds for you on bedtime stories, starting now.
Are you lying comfortably? Then I'll begin. Once upon a time, in a distant country, there lived a king.
Andre Melly's challenge, why?
A deviation because it's bedtime stories and he's telling one.
Oh, no, that's too subtle a challenge. You're being as clever as those two over there who played the game more often than you. It was well done. No, I appreciate the incisiveness there, because that's the way they play. But I disagree with the challenge, because obviously if the subject is stories, you can talk about one story. Clement, you have another point, and you have 43 seconds for bedtime stories, starting now.
And he had 3 daughters. The first was called Melissa, the second was a redhead, no hair, just
Deviation, if she was a redhead and she had no hair, it's ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, I'll have the subject.
Clement seems very
I
pained by this. How do you qualify that, Clement?
no hair, just a scarlet scalp.
Oh, this is a horrid bedtime story.
But that is what a redhead is. Somebody
Well,
with a
it isn't the
redhead.
conventional usage.
No,
That's
I'm
all I can
afraid
say.
it is accurate. It is accurate, though. It's
You
clever.
don't say to people, come and meet this redhead and introduce them to someone with a crimson scalp,
No, but
do
if
you?
you're Clement Freud,
fucking ruined.
Kenneth,
People say, I
if
don't
you're
want to see
Clement,
a flaming head.
Clement,
Heard of a redhead or a blackhead, but we don't want to talk about that.
Kenneth, I have to try and be accurate according to the rules of the game, and Clement Freud had a very clever point there, which he justified, so he has 34 seconds to continue with bedtime stories, starting now.
And it came to pass that this monarch let it be known throughout his kingdom that any man of noble birth who wished to wed one of his progeny might do so by passing 3 simple tests. And the noblemen came from far and wide.
And Andre Melly's challenge.
He had 3 daughters, and now he's got 3 tests, so he's got a repetition of 3.
That's right, there was a repetition of the word 3. 3 tests, 3 daughters. So, they're well listened, Andre. You've gained a point, and there are 16 seconds for bedtime stories starting now.
The best kind of stories to read in bed are the dullest and most boring, because if you suffer from insomnia, you will fall fast asleep over the page. There are enough...
Peter Jones's challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
The audience obviously agree that she hesitated, Peter, so you gain a point, and you take over the subject of bedtime stories starting now. Andre Melly challenge. Why?
Hesitate.
I disagree. Peter Jones has got another point. And there are 3 seconds for bedtime stories, Peter, starting now.
Listening to them over the radio or telephone.
And Peter Jones was then speaking when the whistle went, only just speaking, but he was, and so he gains another point, and he's creeping up now on Kenneth Williams, which is a very insidious thing to do. Kenneth has remained stationary in a position 3rd to Andre Melly 2nd, who is 2 points behind our leader, who's at this moment Clement Freud. And Kenneth, it's your turn to begin. And the subject for you is quotations worth repeating. Could you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, obviously, the first that springs to mind is Edward Bulwer Lytton's beautiful line from Cardinal Richelieu. Beneath the rule of men entirely great, the pen is mightier than the sword. How fine that phrase rings in my ears. Or, perhaps...
Andre Melly's challenge, why?
He's talking too fast.
She pays them to come here.
I think Andre deserves a point for...
Deserves a point. She's the most corrupt element in this show, and you know it. Never have had women in the first place.
She got a very good crack at you,
Comes
which
here
the
all
audience
dolled up.
appreciated, and got a very good laugh. Give her a point.
Look at
Kenneth
her.
keeps the subject.
Oh.
And there are
Oh,
36
nice.
seconds
Oh,
left
yeah.
for quotations worth repeating, Kenneth, starting now.
To gild the gold and paint the lily. Often misquoted, but I've given you the correct one. Thus, to fresh woods and pastures new, not fields, which so many idiots come out with. But perhaps the greatest of all, Acton's all power corrupts. How true that is. Even to this day. And I've got power. Power in the...
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Repetition of power.
It's on the card. Oh,
And power is not...
it is on the card. It's on the card.
It isn't.
It
It's
says worth
quotation.
repeating. Therefore, it's all right. Oh, that's brilliant of me, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't get you a point. It was the most brilliant performance, which the audience adored. He got in his chair, he did a little jig. He convinced himself and the audience that he should really keep the subject.
Just for sure, muscle bound. So.
If what you said was true, then the quotations you have just said were all repeated, and therefore you would have been had up for that. But actually, you were.
I'm not being had up for nothing, thank you.
So, you repeated the word power, and that is repetition within the rules of our game, and so Clement Freud gains a point, and there are 4 seconds, Clement, for quotations worth repeating, starting now.
It is a mark of insincerity of purpose to seek an emperor.
Oh, that's right. I did all the work and he was putting on the last bit. Easy, isn't it? Oh, rotten cheating, isn't it?
Yes, I must say, Kate,
disgusting
you
behaviour.
did work very, very hard.
Worked hard, and he went in and cashed in.
Yeah.
Cashed in, and that's all he done. He has cashed in the whole rotten thing. And it is great. So I've come all the way from London.
And that is all we have time for, and we have to finish now. And just in 4th place is Peter Jones, behind the 3rd place person, who is Kenneth Williams. In 2nd place was Andre Melly, who was way ahead of them, and 3 points behind this week's winner, who was Clement Freud. I'm sorry that we have no more time to play Just a Minute. We hope that you've enjoyed this particular edition of the game. And from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you all about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask our 4 contestants if they can speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject which is written on the card. And according to how well they do it, they will gain points, or their opponents will gain points. And we're going to begin the show this week with Peter Jones. Peter, the subject, being tickled. Can you talk about that subject of being tickled for 60 seconds, starting now?
It can be very pleasant to tickle somebody else, and it also is quite enjoyable if it happens to you. I also believe that it has the possibility of becoming a great spectator sport. It could be on television, and I think one could have star casts of duos or even trios of people who were tickling each other and being tickled also. That isn't repeating it, is it? If it's a different tense, that is not actually repeating the verb. I wouldn't have thought it was, because I see people's fingers drumming on the desks in front of them. And this tickling could be on a large... It could be, there could be huge teams of international experts at this fascinating game, sport, or...
Peter, I must say we were all tickled at your exhibition. I think you did hesitate a couple of times, but you were so tickled by it all, and so were we. I must explain that whoever goes through for 60 seconds without being challenged gains an extra point. On this occasion it was Peter Jones, so he has 2 at the end of that round, and nobody has to speak. Kenneth Williams, will you take the second round this week? And the subject is slang. So can you talk to us on that subject for just a minute, starting now.
Well, this really is not something I should discuss, but since I have 60 seconds in which to do so, I would have to state categorically that this is the language used by those people who we do not refer to as cultivated. Not
Peter Jones' challenge, why?
Well, hesitation, and he was about to repeat himself.
No, I wasn't. I was saying not cultivated, not cultured.
One would do, and I agree with the hesitation, Peter, so you gain another point. And you now have 40 seconds, because I agree with your challenge, I must explain in case of any...
No, he's a blue-eyed boy this week, isn't he?
Yes, he is. But I agree with the challenge, so you gain a point, Peter, and you take over the subject of slang, and there are 40 seconds left, starting now.
I have a dictionary at home, which is...
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
I'm glad he's got a dictionary.
Well, your gladness...
Does not constitute a challenge.
Therefore...
Exactly, you're quite right, Nick. You're a very good chairman. He's a good chairman, isn't he? He's a good chairman. Right, he's on the ball. He's on the ball, that boy.
And it took such intelligence to know that it wasn't a correct challenge, didn't it, Ken?
Right.
Thank you. So, as I disagree with the challenge, because it got nothing to do with the game, I'm afraid that Peter Jones, therefore, gets another point.
Why are you afraid I'm getting another point? Now, you'd be afraid in me getting a point, surely. You'd
No,
be
I'm not
pleased
actually.
at me
It was
getting a
my
point.
juxtaposition of expressions that brought out the wrong emphasis. I'm not afraid of you getting a point. I'm delighted about that. But I'm afraid that as the challenge was incorrect, I have to give it against Clement Freud. You have a point, and there are 36 seconds left for slang, Peter, starting now.
A dictionary of slang.
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
A repetition of dictionary.
He repeated the word dictionary. So, Clement, you have 39 seconds to take over the subject of slang, starting now.
I have an encyclopedia, which was sold to me by a gentleman who came to the door and said, yeah.
Peter Jones is challenged. Why?
I'm very glad that he's got it.
That definitely deserves a bonus point to Peter Jones. But,
I know it's
as
a
he's
status symbol to have an encyclopedia. I've only got a very modest dictionary.
But, Peter, you don't get the subject. Clement Freud keeps the subject, and he has 28 seconds left for slang, starting now.
Watcher, the man said to me, attempting to sell me 43 volumes at £8.10
Kenneth
down.
Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. Gentlemen who sell 43 volumes don't say watcher.
Because my difficult problem here is it
There's
could
no
well-
difficult problem. You
Yes,
give the
there is.
subject to
That's
me.
fine. It's quite possible that this man who sold Clement Freud might have said watcher. I mean, I am not to know. I quite agree with your challenge that it's probably very, very unlikely. So what shall I do? Shall I give it to Kenneth?
Yes.
Yes, all
Yes.
right. Kenneth has a point and Clement Freud agrees, and there are 20 seconds left for slang, Kenneth, starting
One
now.
of the methods employed by Cockneys is to use rhyming slang. Up your apples and pears for stairs, shout and holler for collar, Norton and gold for cold, and so on. Farmer Giles is used, but I will not explain what that means to me.
I think it was probably fortunate. The whistle was blown at that moment by Ian Messiter, telling us that 60 seconds is up. By the way,
Your whistle and flute.
a suit, yes. So, Kenneth, you now have 2 points at the end of that round. Clement Freud has 1, and Peter Jones is definitely in the lead with 5. And, Clement Freud, it is your turn to begin. The subject is figures. Can you talk to us on that one for 60 seconds, starting now?
In this current year, said the chairman of the board of directors, we are expecting to make a profit of £8,327,196, no shillings and few.
Andre Mary's challenge, why?
Deviation, because there aren't shillings in
Yeah,
it.
that's right. He wouldn't say that now because
I didn't
shillings
say it
are-
happened now.
We assumed it. I don't...
Said the chairman.
Said the chairman, and you're
Yes.
going to try and get out of it by
I
saying
wasn't
he
trying
said
to get
this.
out of it. I've effectively emerged from it.
Well, all right then. If Clement Freud wants to argue about this one, I will put it to the audience. I think there was a justifiable challenge. Do you agree with it? If so, cheer. And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now?
Boo!
I'm afraid, Andre, I was with you, but the audience were not, so
That's
Clement Freud
right.
keeps the subject. 43 seconds for figures, Clement, starting now.
I knew a lady whose vital statistics were 78, 45, 23. And she appeared in cabaret, crawling onto the stage and attempting to get up. Many people thought that this figure was one of the most exciting they had ever seen, and she played as
Andre
Vegas.
Melly, why have you challenged?
Deviation. I think this sounds very nasty.
I don't think it was exciting. I quite agree. I cannot think that that figure crawling on the stage was exciting. What do you
It
think
might
of
have
this?
been. She might have been a Rubenesque creature.
Pear-shaped.
Pear-shaped, she might have been. I
Do you think it was
really
exciting,
nice.
ladies and gentlemen?
I was enjoying every minute of
No,
it.
the general consensus is that was not exciting, so Andre has a point, and there are 25 seconds, Andre, for figures starting now.
This is something you have to study at school, and I believe now there is a new method which I don't understand. If you are incapable,
Kenneth Williams, why?
Hesitation.
I disagree entirely. She was going on with great capability. And there are another point to Andre Melly, and 16 seconds for figures, Andre, starting now.
at adding up pounds and new pence, you will find yourself in great difficulty if you have to budget for the household. Go to a supermarket and get one of those long bits of very much more.
So Andre was speaking then when the whistle went, which brings her up to within 1 point of our leader, who is still Peter Jones, and Clement Freud and Kenneth Williams are now equal in third place. And after those last few remarks, you'll never guess what the subject is on the card to follow: pearls. Andre, it is your turn to begin. Will you talk to us about pearls for just a minute, if you can, starting now?
The pub is called the King's Head and is quite near me and belongs to Pearl. She is a marvellous pub owner.
Kenneth Williams' wife, you challenge.
Well, since the subject is pearls, plural, why are we discussing pearl?
Because I think, to my mind, she made it quite clear Pearl is the owner of the pub, and so Pearl's pub would be Pearls. If you're talking about pubs, and she was talking about pubs bringing in pearls. So I think it was a bad challenge, so Andre gains a point, and there are 52 seconds left for Pearls, starting now.
Go there for a drink of an evening, and there she is.
Peter Jones,
leaning-
why have you challenged?
Advertising.
Oh, my God! Very good, very good.
Advertising's not actually one of the reasons you can challenge.
It's in the charter, the BBC
It's
charter.
in the charter,
Oh,
right.
yes.
Never
So
had
it's
women on the
deviation
show.
from the charter.
Ruined it.
It's not in the rules of the game that Ian Messiter thought
Deviation
of.
from the
Just a minute.
charter.
Deviation from your charter. You can't get away from that, mate. Drawn up by King John.
I didn't know
There
Pearl
are
had
some unwritten rules in the
Written rules,
Ian
yes.
I didn't
Messiter's-
know Pearl had a
No good
charter,
you
actually.
dithering there, Nick. You're
I'm not
caught.
dithering.
You're caught, Nick. You're
I'm not-
caught with them down, mate. Come on.
I'm not dithering, I'm just giving the audience a chance to enjoy themselves. So, Peter Jones has gained a point for a magnificent challenge, which I immediately agree with. And he has 49 seconds left to take over Pearls, starting now.
I've known many of them in my life, but I have some favorite ones in Australia. They grow there in oysters, and the oysters themselves.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of oysters.
No, he said oyster the first time and oysters
No.
the second.
They grow in oysters and the oysters.
The oyster itself, he said second.
Stop
so
it.
it's singular. So such a row. He's got to keep it.
Well, as I, a moment ago, gave it against Andre Melly, which meant that she didn't get a point, it would only be fair in competition to give it against Clement Freud on this occasion, because then he doesn't get the point, and Peter
good.
Jones continues with the subject of pearls, and there are 39 seconds left, starting now.
They grow throughout the Pacific, around the Solomon Islands and the other islands of Cayman.
Clement Freud challenged again.
Repetition of islands?
Yes, this time I'm afraid I can't let you get away with it again, Peter. There was a repetition of Ireland, so Clement gets another point, and there are 33 seconds left for pearls, Clement, starting now.
A hostelry near the Quitax residence, known as Pearls, should never be visited. Keep away from Pearls. Do not go there.
Peter Jones has challenged. Why?
Anti-advertising.
Now, Peter, I must say, if I allow it for advertising, I can't allow it for anti-advertising. So it was a very clever attempt, but I think we just won't charge any points there because he was trying very hard. Clement keeps the subject, and there are 37 seconds left for... I'm sorry. There are 23 seconds left for Pearls, Clement, starting now.
When my mother-in-law bought a knitting machine, it said plain and pearl, which I had no idea referred to anyone but me and my family. But I was wrong. And pearl is a particular...
Andre Melly, why did you challenge?
Large hesitation.
A large hesitation, yes, because he realised he was talking nonsense,
No.
I think. There are 6 seconds left for you, Andre, on Pearls, starting now.
A nice pearl necklace. That used to be considered something English and ladylike. That went with these steps.
At the end of that round, Andre Melly was again speaking when the whistle went, so she gained the extra point, which brings her into the lead now alongside Peter Jones, and Clement Freud is now in 3rd place. Peter Jones, it is your turn to begin. The subject is the press. Can you talk to us about the press for 60 seconds, starting now?
I'm not going to start talking about journalists or Fleet Street or the newspapers, but I'm going to speak to you about the press which is used in Bordeaux to take the juice out of the grapes and make it into wine in September. That's the most popular time of the year for making it and bottling it. And it's an interesting process because chemistry plays a very important part in the production of wine, and many people are involved. Viniculturists have been there for generations on the banks of the Loire and in Burgundy and the Haute-Medoc and elsewhere in France and, of course, other countries.
Kenneth Williams a challenge. Why?
I think he's just showing off. It's all about these wines.
He was showing off magnificently, and he was keeping going without hesitating, without repeating
Oh, he's a
himself.
blue-eyed boy, isn't he? Can't go wrong, can he?
And whether he shows off or not, as long as he doesn't deviate from the subject on the card.
Loire stuff. Load of sheesh, wasn't it? Did you hear it?
Oh, sheesh. All right, 18 seconds left for the press. Peter, starting now.
In Italy, they make often a sweeter type of juice, which is after...
Andre made a challenge. Why?
A hesitation.
Yes, I think the hesitation was definite enough there, Peter. So I agree with the challenge. Andre gets another point, and there are 12 seconds left for the press, starting now.
I would like to talk about journalists and newspapers and the like. These people can be very frightening.
Clement Freud challenge. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
I think comparing a journalist to a newspaper, I don't see how you can compare a piece of paper to a human being.
Therefore, it was devious. That's right, that's true, that's absolutely true.
Yes, that's true. I suppose you can't compare a journalist to a newspaper.
What about repetitions? He said, I'd like to talk about
It's
journalists
too late
and
now
the
for
like.
that, Peter. You should have come before. Yeah, that's a very subtle point, and I think, therefore, it's a legitimate point because you can't, therefore, compare the newspaper and the press. So, what's the matter?
I wasn't comparing them. I was going
Well, we
to talk
can't have an
about
inquest on it. Come on, let's
collective
have
noun that
an
also
inquest
has
on it,
press.
can we? Went on and on about
I don't know what you said.
what he
actually.
was
I'll
doing.
put it to the audience. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you agree with Pember's challenge? If you do, will you please cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? Will you all do it together now? You're on your side, Andre. There, I do have a point, and there are 4 seconds left for the press, starting now.
People who write for these said magazines, journals, and...
At the end of that round, Andre again was speaking when the whistle went, and she has now gained a lead. Kenneth Williams, it is your turn to begin. The
Well, thank
subject-
goodness, I mean, thank goodness I haven't given a chance.
Well, this is a very apt subject that EMS has chosen for you.
Yes?
We hope you won't display it, but we know that sometimes we would like to see it.
Ah.
Self-control. Can you talk to us, Kenneth, about self-control for 60 seconds, starting now?
This process begins in the cranium and conveys through various nerve centers down the spine to the body the instructions which it wants to deliver, i.e., it will say, do not move. In certain circumstances, immobile action is the best. Oh, that's ridiculous. You can't be immobile if you're
Freud,
really, so it's perfectly all right.
Deviation.
Yes, out of your own mouth, I'm afraid you committed yourself, Kenneth. So, 30 seconds for self-control, Clement, starting now.
When I bought a twin-engined aeroplane and was thought
Kenneth Williams.
Hesitation.
All right, I agree. You couldn't get it out quick enough, could you? All right, I agree. Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 25 seconds for self-control, starting now.
When I said to this woman in this terrible press, will you take me into your abode, she said, control yourself. But I couldn't because I was throbbing with it. I said to her, I'm here to demonstrate these briefs are butch as part of the campaign for masculinity. Who better than me, I thought. She said, get out of it. I said, vous avez suggesté, vous avez...
Well, Kenneth Williams was then speaking when the whistle went, so he gained the extra point. And if that's how he behaves to the press, he must say he does display tremendous self-control, doesn't he? Clement Freud, your turn to begin. Unusual things I have eaten. Can you talk about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
possibly the most unusual thing I've eaten was a tapioca pudding. And it was extraordinary in that I believed it to be sago. And it was only after 3 or 4 mouthfuls that the true realization...
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Hesitation. Didn't he hesitate?
No, I
Seemed to me he
don't-
hesitated.
No, he tried, no, he almost, but not quite, Peter. No,
No.
I have to be fair on this. I don't think he really hesitated. So, Clement gets another point, and there are 44 seconds left for unusual things I have eaten, starting now.
Recently in a competition, I was asked to judge a boiler chicken and rearrange it in a well-known phrase or saying. Before...
Kenneth Williams. why-
Deviation, you can't rearrange a boiler chicken into any phrases.
Well, I'd like to know what the hell you can do.
Oh, don't say so rude.
I don't think you can rearrange a boiler chicken into a well-known phrase. So, Kenneth, your indignation and your challenge gained you a point, and there are 34 seconds for unusual things I have eaten, starting now.
Well, this dumpling was served, and I thought it's terrible, and cut it open, and inside was this unpeeled lemon, and I chucked it down the lavatory, but it kept coming up again. And I thought,
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Repetition.
Why?
It kept coming up again.
All right, give Clement Freud a bonus point for a good challenge. But as Kenneth hasn't, strictly speaking, deviated from the subject on the card, he keeps going for 22 seconds on unusual things I've eaten, starting now.
little knowing that I'd taken my father's stomach powder from what was marked the flour bin, I made cheese straws. When I ate them, the result was revolting. And I came over all funny. I was sort of green. People said, "Oh, you all right? You look queer."
Well, before Kenneth could go any further with how he felt then, thank goodness, the whistle went, and he gained an extra point, and he's still equal together in third place, just a little behind Peter Jones now, not quite so far behind, who is still a little behind our leader, who is still Andre Mellet. Andre, your turn to begin. The subject is rubbish. Can you talk for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
Many a 60-second minute on this program could be said to be rubbish that is spoken, if you are very good at it.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Well, it doesn't make any sense. Many a 60-minute second could be called rubbish. I mean, it's rubbish. She's talking nonsense.
I know she's talking rubbish. It's terribly clever. So I think on every count she wins, and she has 50 seconds to continue on rubbish, starting now.
I don't really want to talk about
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation.
It's obviously totally incompetent. They should never have women on this show.
All right, Kenneth, so you gain a point, and you have 47 seconds on rubbish starting now.
What an appalling occurrence when this stuff was not taken away as it should have been. Piling high in the streets, and the odour. Pooh, I was crying. And the caretaker saying, stacked in the yard it is. When will the operatives appear? They don't like to be called dustmen. Cleansing operatives. Who got me?
Challenged.
Who got me?
Your friend next to
You rotter! Oh, the dirty rotter! How could you do a thing like that? I was simply going.
Clement Freud, I agree with your challenge, so you take over the subject of rubbish, and there are 23 seconds left starting now.
There are many survey companies, specifically in the United States, who go through people's rubbish, or kitchen refuse if you like, to determine their consumption and their rejection of products on the open market. A friend of mine called Witherspoon was recently employed with such a corporation in order to ascertain...
Kenneth Williams has challenged you.
I don't believe he's got this friend with a spoon.
Now, this is the problem. I don't know if we've got a friend with a spoon or not. And we know we're getting towards the end of the game, and we know that it's just towards the end of this round, and there's 2 seconds to go, and I will have to put you on your honor, Clement Freud. Have you got a friend called Witherspoon? Oh, he's honest. He has
I love him. Where's
it. You take back all the things you just said about him.
I'm sorry. I should never have done it. Oh, Clem, will you forgive me?
So, Clement Freud's honesty gains Kenneth Williams a point. There are 2 seconds to go on rubbish. Kenneth starting now.
Oh, I didn't mean to have it, but no, I really didn't. No, I didn't even get it back.
And we have a very, very close finish, because that is all we have time for, and we have to finish now. And just in 4th place is Clement Freud, but he's only 1 point behind the 3rd place person, who is Peter Jones, who is only 1 point behind the 2nd place person, who is Kenneth Williams, who is only 1 point behind this week's winner, once again, Andre Melly. I'm sorry that we have no more time to play Just a Minute. We hope that you've enjoyed this particular edition of the game. And from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you've just heard, we welcome back to play the game Sheila Hancock against our 3 regular male competitors. And once again, I'm going to ask each of them to speak, if they can, for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. And according to how well they do this, they will gain points, or their opponents will gain points. Clement Freud, will you begin the game for us this week? And it is the chairman. Would you now talk to us for just a minute on the subject of the chairman, starting now?
I first met the chairman when we were at school together. I recall very well walking through the courtyard, and a boy came up to me, and he was tall, fair-haired, distinguished, good-looking, erect, proud. And he said to me, "I'd like to introduce you to Nicholas Parsons." And behind him there came a small, grubby, scribaceous, grotty.
Sheila Hancock is challenged. Why?
Deviation, because Nicholas Parsons isn't small and scrubby and grotty.
Was then.
I think I'll leave it to the audience. Do you agree with Sheila's challenge? I'm not going to adjudicate what I was like at that age. So do you agree with Sheila? Do you think I was small and scrubby and grotty when I was that age? If you do, will you You don't. I haven't even got to put it to you. They agree with you, Sheila. Thank you very much for coming to my defense in that admirable way. I thank you, audience, for clapping, all four of you. And glad to have you back on the show, Sheila, to defend people's
thought you
honour
might
and
be.
integrity.
What's
And
the
there are
subject?
32 seconds, having gained a point for the chairman, starting now.
And he is tall and fair, with the most beautiful blue eyes, and the judgment of Solomon he gives on this program. Ever honest, ever discreet.
Clement Foyder's challenge, why?
Repetition of ever.
Well,
Ever honest, ever discreet.
Yes, but she was being so charming and delightful. Sheila gets a point. And there are 20
Bit
seconds for you to
crawly.
continue.
Today he has on an orange tie. This is for the benefit of the listeners. And a beautiful...
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Hesitation.
Yes, I think there was, I'm afraid. Yes. Peter, you have a point. 16 seconds for the chairman, starting now.
I'll pick up the threads of the clothes that he's wearing, including the fawn jacket and matching trousers.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation, he can't pick up the threads, otherwise I would mean you were threadbare or something.
I'm not going to take my top garments off and show you how threadbare I am underneath. So, therefore, you are not to judge how threadbare I may be. In any way, he can, metaphorically speaking, take up the threads of the recent conversation. So, I disagree with your challenge, and Peter has a point. And there are 10 seconds, Peter, to continue with the chairman, starting now.
He's wearing very crumpled cream socks underneath dark brown suede shoes. He's just holding up his left leg so that you can get a better view of it. His right leg.
So at the end of that round, thanks to the clothes I was wearing and Peter's apt description of them, Peter Jones has jumped into a commanding lead of 1. Sheila Hancock, it is your turn to begin, and the subject is the love of my life.
Oh, there's so many.
Can you reveal that to us in 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, he's a little short man with a face like a gnome. Sometimes he's beautiful. Sometimes he's quite funny. He has...
Clement Foyder's challenge, why?
It's a repetition of Nicholas Parsons again.
Certainly no repetition of Nicholas Parsons. So I'm afraid I disagree with the challenge, and Sheila has another point, and there are 42 seconds for the love of my life. Sheila, starting now.
Well, at the moment, he's tall and fair and wearing a thorn suit and yellow tie because he gave the judgment in my favour. But the love of my life a minute ago was this little fella who has the most expressive bottom in the business. Also has a great big range of voices which he uses at every available opportunity. I've never declared this in public, but I've known him for years, and it's been burning my heart. And I've longed to tell the world, and now I will. I adore him from the bottom of my soul, and everybody has always
Clement
known
Foyder's
it.
challenged you.
Eh?
He's challenged you.
Well, he's got no right to challenge her. She was doing lovely, wasn't she? She was doing really lovely, that girl.
Yes.
More power to her elbow.
I think it was... Clement, why did you challenge?
It wasn't the elbow, it was the bottom.
I know it was
Yes.
the bottom. I'm afraid
Repetition
you...
of.
Yes.
Well, it's a very nice behind. She got every
Deviation?
right. What's the matter with you?
Well,
He's a spoil sport. You should never have had him on this show. Who got him?
Well, I'll tell you what, Kenneth, I think I can be quite subtle here, because the first time she was talking about your bottom, and the second time she was talking about the bottom of her heart.
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant. Oh, he's a very good judge. What a judge.
I don't think so, but I'm going to give it to Sheila Hancock, because
Yes,
everybody else wants to
lovely.
hear about the love of her life, and there are 20 seconds left for the love of my life, Sheila,
dear.
starting now.
We were in a show years ago, and he was so kind to me that I couldn't help but love him and give him my everlasting devotion. Mind you, sometimes he trays...
Kenneth Williams' wife...
Deviation. She didn't give me everlasting devotion, and one night when I came into her room, she said, "Shut up." She said to me, "Shut up." She said to me, honestly, I came in and I said, "Hello, darling. How are you?" And I said, "Oh, shut your great mouth," she said. Very rude to me, so that's not everlasting devotion, is it?
Well, I
does
don't
he
know.
know?
She might have been so filled with passion this is the only way she could express it. Perhaps you weren't responding to the love, and now she was being antagonistic.
Anyway, I haven't said I'm talking about him.
No, of course you haven't. Sheila Hancock has another point, and there are 10 seconds left for the love of my life, Sheila, starting now.
And this fella lives in Macclesfield, and his name is Fred Smith. He happens to look a bit like Kenneth Williams, but it's nothing to do with him at all.
Well, the love of her life has taken Sheila at the end of that round into a commanding lead. She now leads Peter Jones by 3. Peter Jones, it's your turn to begin. The subject, getting in a flap. Can you go on that subject for just a minute, starting now?
I've been camping all over England and Wales and also in Italy and France. But perhaps the best place for it is New South Wales, the hinterland of which, or better known sometimes as the Great Outback, is unrivaled for panoramic views.
Sheila Hancock, a very loud challenge.
Deviation, what's this got to do with getting in a flap?
Well, to my
I'll tell
way
you
of
in a minute.
thinking, he was going to talk about a tent flap, you see.
Ah.
That was what was on my way.
Oh, all right then.
Yes.
Go on then.
So, Peter, I disagree with the challenge, so you gain a point, and you have 40 seconds left for getting in a flap, starting now.
Beautiful country though it is, the weather, unlike Mr. Freud, is not always clement. And when the southerly blusters bust in...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, I think so on this occasion. So there are 29 seconds for you, Clement, on getting in a flap, starting now.
One definition of getting into a flap is losing your mind, not being able to say what you mean to say, being flustered, or becoming somewhat worried about what was going to happen. This is something which happens much more to Mr. Jones, Miss Hancock, Mr. Williams, and indeed yourself, if I may.
Kenneth Williams' wife who
Oh,
challenged.
it's just all so boring. Deviation.
Why?
Oh, discussion about Miss Hancock and all these things. I mean,
Yeah, but you see, as long as you keep to the subject on the card, doesn't matter how boring or tedious or unebullient you may be, you are not committing any
He
of the...
didn't mind him, Sheila talking about him. When he thought she was talking about him, he didn't object to that, did he?
Because it wasn't boring, it was lovely.
So, as much as I appreciate the feeling behind the challenge, it wasn't a correct one, Kenneth, so Clement Freud has another point, and there are 6 seconds for getting in a flap, Clement, starting now.
Open the buttons, pull forward the material, and jump into it head first.
On this occasion, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, and so he gains the extra point on that occasion, but Sheila Hancock is still leading. But back to you, Kenneth. Your turn to begin. Cagliostro. Can you talk about him for just a minute, starting now?
Well, of course, one really thinks of the real name, which was Giuseppe Balsamo, and he was some sort of prestidigitateur or alchemist, said he could convert base metal into gold, and obviously kidded Marie Antoinette because he was at that court for a long time, and got strangely mixed up with his diamond necklace affair, you know. Of course, she never said all this stuff about let them eat cake. It was all rubbish, you know. She'd come from the Hofburg in Vienna, which was very bare and gloomy, and found Fontainebleau and Versailles.
Sheila Hancock challenged you.
I
Why?
hesitate to challenge in case you give it to me, but he's talking about Marie Antoinette, isn't he? Not about...
Cagliostro was at her court. He was an alchemist. Oh, you are raving mad.
But you've got to talk about him! Not about me.
I
Anyway,
must explain to the listeners that Kenneth Williams has now left his seat and put his fist up and challenged Sheila Hancock to do battle with him. Sheila says she's prepared to do so, so Kenneth's gone back to his seat. But I think that Kenneth fairly well established that Cagliostro was at Marie Antoinette's court, and so I think it was relevant, Sheila. So Kenneth gains a point, and he keeps the subject, and there are 19 seconds left, starting now.
So he produced this great lump of lead and said, before your very eyes, this is going to become this glittering thing, you see, promising her that he was going to turn it into this rare mineral. I won't say the name because I'll be repeating myself.
Kenneth Freud is well challenged. Why?
Deviation, he's talking about repeating himself instead of about Cagliostro.
Yes, he was talking about repeating himself, but he was still referring to what Cagliostro did. Therefore, he wasn't deviating from the subject of Cagliostro. So he has another point, and there are 4 seconds left, Kenneth, starting now.
So she said, think on these things, and he thunk on them. No, I mean...
So, Kenneth Williams was then speaking when the whistle went, so he gained not only the extra point, but he was the only one to gain any points because he started with the subject and finished with it, and he's now in second place behind our leader, who is still Sheila Hancock. Clement Freud, it is your turn to begin. The subject, roses. Can you talk to us about roses for just a minute, starting now?
Roses are flowers that come in different colors and for some extraordinary reason seem to be called after people who forced, grew, or otherwise made them come up. There is, for instance, one bloom called P.J. Wilkinson, which was invented by a man who lived on the outskirts of
Peter
Leamington.
Jones, why have you challenged?
Couldn't have been invented. A rose can't be
No,
invented.
it can't be invented. It is created, it is nurtured, it is grafted, but hardly what you said. Therefore, Peter, I agree with your challenge, and there are 41 seconds for roses, starting now.
It's lovely to wander among them as they grow in Queen Mary's Gardens, one of my favourite walks in London. All varieties, Lady Wilkinson and Lady Blenkinsop and others.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Two ladies.
But I'm afraid there were two ladies there. So, Clement, I agree with the challenge. 30 seconds for you to continue with roses, starting now.
Aided by one small laboratory assistant who answered to the name of Watson.
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Hesitation. He
The
hesitated.
only way he answered if you hesitated Watson. Otherwise, he did.
Well, you should have made that clear before you
I did.
hesitated.
I said he
You said,
answered.
as he hesitatingly replied, Swanson.
Don't you give
Swanson.
any tricks away. You keep that one for yourself.
Yes, well, that's
Yes,
quite good. Yes.
No, I agree with your challenge. I think Clement, out of his own mouth, has committed himself by saying that's the only way to do it, by hesitating. There are 23 seconds for roses, Peter, starting now.
And, of course, there are many other parks in London, and the provinces, too. We mustn't forget the further reaches of this great country, which is very rich in flowers and all growing things, trees and grass and whatnot. But perhaps more beautiful than any of these green things are the purple,
Clement Freud's
yellow...
challenge, why?
Repetition of things. We
Yes,
said
there
things
was.
and things.
Yes. I love to see you growing whatnot. That's what That's what I was laughing about, Peter. I'm afraid you did repeat things, so Clement Freud gets the subject back just before the whistle. Only 2 seconds left. Roses, Clement, starting now.
Well, there were some who said the extra 2 answers made sense.
Sheila Hancock, it's your turn to begin. The subject is Hollywood. So can you talk to us about Hollywood for 60 seconds, starting now?
There are oaks and poplars and elms, all sorts of lovely trees in Hollywood, Berkshire. I used to go there a lot when I was a small child, and I enjoyed wandering under the shady boughs like a little babe in the wood. However, there is another definition of this name. It is in America, and a little while ago,
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
It's deviation. It's not a definition of a name.
Oh, isn't it?
It's a geographical location.
That's
Yes,
true, that's
another
true.
definition. That is a perfectly valid point, yes. Especially I wasn't allow you having to invent a rose. So, Clement, you take a point, and the subject, 35 seconds, Hollywood, starting now.
Hollywood in Berkshire is near a place called California in England because that county in which Windsor Castle is located does have a penchant for naming places entirely unsuitably and misleadingly. When I was a small boy who went to school not far from Hollywood, I was taken there to go on a plastic lake and jump into a cotton wool sea.
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Yes,
Yes, I
whatever.
think so. Yes, a Scotland wool. So, Peter, I agree with the challenge, and you have a point, and there are 7 seconds for Hollywood, Peter, starting now.
Birthplace of my late wife. I say that in the sense not that she's dead, but no longer here, or at least not arrived yet. Otherwise...
Kenneth is looking very surprised and shocked. Peter Jones, it's your turn to begin. What a delightful subject that Ian Messett has thought of for you. Keeping up with the Joneses. 60 seconds, starting now.
I don't know who it was who coined or invented this phrase, but I am willing to bet that it was many years ago. And whoever did suggest the phrase first...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of phrase.
Yes, I'm afraid you repeated your phrase. So, Clement Freud, you have a point, and you take over the subject with 47 seconds left. Keeping Up with the Joneses, starting now.
When a friend of mine joined the circus, the very first job that he was given was to help the men on the trapeze, who were three brothers by the name of Jones. And his job was to sit on the ceiling.
Kenneth Williams, why have you
It's a
challenged?
job twice, repetition.
Yes, that's quite right. Yeah, don't be so, Kenneth, you look very sort of,
Po-faced?
No.
I should, 'cause I haven't spoken for ages. Furious here I am, glowering I am, smarting under the snub.
I haven't snubbed you, I just say you can look hurt. I was concerned
Well,
for
that's
you.
why I'm telling
I
you.
want to bring you back into
Yes,
the game. I want you to enjoy
Bring
it.
me
Your,
into the fold, yeah.
your ebullience and
Warmth,
your...
I need all that.
Yes. So you're back with us because you
Yes.
gained a
What's the
well-deserved
subject?
point.
What's the subject?
The subject is Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Oh.
And there are 35 seconds to continue starting now.
Well, of course, this really refers to a kind of suburban snobbery whereby somebody says they've got it next door, why shouldn't we have it? I personally think it's a load of rubbish, because I don't want what people have got mostly next door anyway. When I see half the things that...
Sheila Hancock challenge you why?
Repetition of next door.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got a nerve.
But she also needs a point. She hasn't had one for about 2 rounds. So, Sheila, you have a well-deserved point, and there are 18 seconds for Keeping Up with the Joneses, starting now.
If this refers to Peter sitting on my left, it's a very easy matter, because he moves rather slowly. Many's the time I've walked down the street with him, and I found it no effort at all to even overtake him. So therefore, I would say that this is a simple matter.
Sheila Hancock was then speaking when the whistle went, so she's gained 2 points of that round. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. Joseph Michael Montgolfier is the subject that dear Missett has thought of for you. And can you talk to us about him for 60 seconds starting now?
Well, Montgolfier said to his brother, Jacques, here, why don't we go up in this balloon? And they, in fact, invented one and went up in it. And they said it was marvellous because you just floated through the silence of the atmosphere, savouring almost an uncanny feeling of poetic majesty as clouds sailed by in the azure blue of the heavens, and pointing out below little landmarks of a steeple, or a church nave, or a garden, or a river flowing gently, say, winding down to an inland port, where they were unloading bales of hay, or rye, or
Peter
barley.
Jones, you've challenged. Why?
Sounds like a lot of hot air.
I think you're right, but can you be a bit more precise in your challenge?
Well, he kind of made.
You mean he
one
was
syllable.
deviating from what Montgolfier did
Yes.
into describing the picturesque English countryside?
I think it's fair to say that, yes.
So, Peter, you have a point, and there are 7 seconds for Joseph Michael Montgolfier starting now.
Didn't actually invent the balloon, but merely made a plan for such
Sheila
a...
Hancock challenge, why?
Oh, I hate to do it. Hesitation.
Well, if you hate to do it, why did you do it?
Ah, well, because it's the game. You have to play the
Yes,
game,
you have
Peter.
to. You have to play the
Play
game.
up,
I
play
think
up.
it was so borderline, and as there's only 2 seconds to go, I think I must put it in fairness to the audience. Let them be the final judge. I'd hate to judge.
That's just mob rule, you know, that is.
Yes. Well, I've got to go for mob rule now because it's absolutely equal. There really is only 1 point separating everybody.
Well, I know. I'll give yield.
You're going to yield?
Yes,
Well, I wouldn't
yield.
mind yielding to Sheila Hancock. Shut up, Kenneth Williams.
It's really nice in here, yes, in my corner here. I can see the sweat pouring off the face, and Sheila Hancock is visibly perspiring. Yes, she's got underarm stain. I can see it coming through her. It's really quite funny.
Are you finished, Kenneth?
I'm throbbing with it here.
I know. Do you want to go some and then we continue?
Oh, well, after.
Right, Peter Jones says he wants to yield to Sheila Hancock. It's all getting very intimate, isn't it? We will give Sheila a point, and there are 2 seconds, Sheila, for you on Joseph Michael Montgolfier starting now.
This gentleman went up...
Well, as Sheila was speaking when the whistle went, she got the extra point, so it means that she is 1 point in the lead. If it had been the other way round and Peter hadn't yielded, he would now be 1 point in the lead. It's very interesting, isn't it, really? By the way, I'm not certain of my facts, but I believe the facts are that neither of these inventors actually ever went up in the balloon. They sent other people up, which I think is
Very wise.
a pretty safe way of inventing things. Clement Freud, the subject is now with you, and it is journalism. Can you talk for just a minute on journalism, starting now?
Journalism can be said to be a secondary art, the primary one being writing, and this one coming when nobody will publish long books or tracts, but there are people prepared to print small snippets of information like, quote, nothing much happened in Chile today, unquote, which is the sort of headline you would find in Fleet Street journals on sale at any good newsagent in towns, cities, even villages. I am a journalist inasmuch as nobody will employ me in other capacities, always excepting panel games on the British Broadcasting Corporation and occasionally selling pigeons on Blackpool Beach. Recently, I was there saying, half a crown, who wants one? And a man said, I would very much care to have a pigeon.
Kenneth Williams' challenge. Well,
How rotten. I said pigeons.
it was rotten, but it was...
I said pigeons.
Yes.
Pigeon.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I do withdraw my challenge, and I'm terribly sorry.
No, it sounded like a repetition of the word, and I think it was. So, and as it's so close, I've got to be very accurate here. So, Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 7 seconds for journalism starting now.
Well, contrary to what Clement Freud said, it is not an art at all. It is to do with...
Peter Jones is challenged.
Art doesn't have 3 syllables. He hesitated terribly, strung it out. Spinning it out hopelessly.
Well, I know why. You see, he's now knows what the game's about. He knows there's only 2 seconds to go, and he's coming in with any old challenge.
I don't. I rather resent that. Any old challenge. Perfectly good challenge.
It was a good challenge, but it's not an accurate one. I'm not going to allow it.
I'm
it
afraid it
was.
was accurate. He's right. I was spinning it. I was spinning it out.
You always
Oh,
spin
well,
it out, and we know that. You always spin it out. If I have to give it to you against you now for spinning it out, I should have given it to you 100 times before.
I
spinning
see
it
your
out.
point.
So
I'm
no,
sorry.
everybody has their style of speech, and unless you overplay
That's
your
true.
style, and you
That's
weren't
true.
overplaying then, I must give it to you, Kenneth, and there are 2 seconds for journalism starting now.
It's simply putting down the stuff that appears instantaneously in the newspapers and is read instantaneously, therefore 143-hour coverage.
Well, I had a very difficult decisions to make at the last one. As you saw, it was so key, because if I'd given that decision to Peter Jones, we would have had 3 equal winners. Instead of that, we have 2 in second place, which is Peter Jones and Clement Freud. 1 point behind this week's winner, Sheila Hancock. And we do hope that you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, we're delighted to have Sheila Hancock with us to do battle with our 3 regular male competitors. And once again, I'm going to ask them to speak, each one in turn, if they can, for just a minute, on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. And according to how well they do it, they will gain points, or their opponents will gain points. And let us begin the show this week with Clement Freud. And the subject is a good one to begin with. Just a minute. Can you talk, Clement, for 60 seconds on Just a Minute, starting now?
When you go into a restaurant and order a steak, which may be a sirloin, an entrecôte, a fillet, or a rump, and you want it underdone, rare, senior...
Deviation, just a minute, is the title of a radio show, and he's talking about steaks.
Yeah, but Kenneth, he might go in there and say, just a minute.
Oh, you ever heard anyone go in there and say just a minute?
No, but yes, regularly, the waiter always says to be just a minute, and it's an hour. And this is what I was...
Oh, well, then I withdraw.
Well, I'm delighted. It makes it much easier
I
for
just
me.
withdraw the challenge. I mean, I make no bones about it. I'm sorry I spoke. I'm sorry. Just kick me as you pass.
Anyway, Kenneth, I disagree with your challenge. So Clement Freud has a point, and he has 50 seconds to continue on Just a Minute, starting now.
An alternative method to specifying the type of meat you wish to have is to say to the waiter, just a minute, as a result of which it will come up raw, or at best burnt on the outside and cold on the inner. But Just a Minute is also the name of a radio panel game in which stars of stage, screen, and dog track assemble before small...
Kenneth Williams,
Deviation. There's no stars of any dog track up here.
you haven't seen Clement Freud on a dog track, have you?
Coming out of track 4.
Are we in the realm of reality or not? I mean, are we discussing this seriously? Is he really in a trap? Does he come out of a trap?
No, he was then, Kenneth, I must explain to you, that was a Clement Freud joke about the idea of him coming out of a trap.
I see.
I think he kept going. He didn't altogether deviate from Just a Minute, so I'm going to give him another point, and there are 26 seconds for Just a Minute, Clement, starting now.
Sit on the stage of a London theatre while a small, puny audience boo and occasionally...
Kenneth Williams...
Deviation. Grave discourtesy to these lovely people. Grave discourtesy. Grave discourtesy. Thank you. Appalling rudeness.
You mean deviation, so you mean that our audience is not...
needed a braver audience than that,
Yes.
dear me.
You're saying it's deviation because it's not a small and
Precisely.
pretty audience, yes.
Mm.
And obviously
And
Clement
far
Freud...
from puny. Look at her up there. Look at her.
I've never seen a man throw it away so much as Clement Freud did. He threw his chance away there to antagonize our whole audience, because once they clap, you know, we know which way it goes, and they're the final arbiters. So, Kenneth, I agree with your challenge. You take over the subject, and there are 18 seconds, just a minute, starting now.
Just a minute is a perfect medium through which you can hear the dulcet tones of Kenneth Williams. What fine...
Sheila Hancock, why do you challenge?
Deviation, they're not always dulcet.
No.
I grant they are sometimes.
Yeah, they're not always dulcet. No. I mean, sometimes they're most abrasive, aren't they? And very aggressive and very rude. And so, Sheila, I agree with your challenge, so you gain a point, and there are 9 seconds for Just a Minute, starting now.
It is incredibly difficult to talk on one subject for 1 minute. I wouldn't have believed it would be as difficult until I joined
That's a whistle that has just been blown by the man who keeps the time and invented the game. Ian Messiter tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gets an extra point. In this case, it was Sheila Hancock, who has a lead of 2 alongside Clement Freud over Peter Jones and 1 over Kenneth Williams at the end of the first round. And Sheila Hancock, it's your turn to begin. The subject is poetry. Can you talk to us on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
This happens to be one of the great joys of my life. It's something I discovered about 2 years ago. At school, I remember endlessly doing boring old things like Hiawatha, which are enough to put you off for life. However, now I have discovered more modern verse, and indeed I have given the odd poetry reading at places like the Festival Hall, and nothing gives me...
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Deviation.
Why?
There are no places like the festival.
You're most rude,
It's unique.
interrupting a lady like this. It's
Well, she
disgraceful.
actually said odd places like the Festival Hall. I think that would agree with your challenge that the Festival Hall is odd, and there's no other place like it. So you are therefore agreeing with Sheila, so she has another point, and there are 33 seconds
She'll
for
win, she'll win.
poetry starting now.
Sylvia Plath is one of my favourite poets. I had a funny thing happen a little while ago when I was going to do one of these said appearances.
Peter Jones, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
No, don't be so ungallant, you rude person. Go on, dear, go
I
on.
yielded
Nice.
I think she was floundering
Nice.
a little, whether she actually...
Floundering, yes,
No,
that's
she was
what I mean.
lovely. That's
Floundering,
talking about
hesitating,
particular
what do you
poet,
else
very
to call
nice.
it?
She's all a god.
Kenneth!
All a god she is. Want to hear it?
If we all speak at once, the listeners don't know what's going on. I think that it was a debatable point, but Peter Jones, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to you and say she was. So you have a point, and there are 24 seconds left for poetry starting now.
If you can fill each unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, the earth is yours and everything that's in it. And what is more, you'll be a man, my son. I feel that those words...
Clement Freud actually challenged you.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Hesitation.
Well, I'm afraid there was, Peter.
You left an ever so long pause.
He left it along. He left it for the audience to applaud, which they did. But you see, the thing is, even if they clap, you've got to keep going.
Ah, I didn't realize that.
Yes. You can't play to your audience and just wait for the laughs and the applause and build it up that way. No, it was a very long pause, Peter. I agree with Clement's challenge, so he gains a point, and there are 9 seconds for poetry, Clement, starting now.
There was a time when poetry consisted of verse, and each...
Kenneth Williams' wife, challenge.
Because there's deviation. The statement is totally incorrect.
Why?
Well, the poetry has always been poetry. It's never consisted of anything else.
I disagree. I mean, poetry can be verse. I mean, it depends on which way you interpret
He
the
said there
words.
was a time when poetry
Don't
was
argue with the chairman.
classified
It's a
as
family
verse.
show.
There's never been anything like
I don't know
that.
why we had
Poetry's
Dennis
always
Williams
been
on the show in
poetry.
the
There's never
first
been a time when it was anything else.
I don't know why we had
Always
Dennis
been
Williams on the show.
poetry. Now look here, girls. I'll
you
give
say
you
it,
chapter
Jim?
and verse. What do you want, Aristotle? Do you want Aristotle? Do you want Plato on the subject?
I want Dennis
Poetry's
Newman.
always been poetry. Don't you shut up.
I want-
Start with me, mate.
I want to have Derek Nimmer
I'll put
back.
one on you. I'll put one on you.
All
Poetry
right.
for you. Hey, what? Good
I will
night.
put one on the audience now. If you want chapter and verse, then I will go to the audience.
If you are the only darling one.
Kenneth Williams, you said as soon as the show was over, you had to get away
Yes, I
early.
know,
Don't
I
lose
must
yes.
hurry up.
Shall I go on?
Yes,
Well,
I
that's
think
prose
you should.
poem.
Yes, I think so. So, Clement, you have a point, and there are 5 seconds left, starting now.
But now there is prose poem, many of which is thought...
On that occasion, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, so he gained the extra point, and he now has a lead over Sheila Hancock at the end of that round. Peter Jones, it's your turn to begin. The subject, surf riding. Can you talk to us about surf riding for 60 seconds, starting now?
One of the most memorable advertisements I can ever recall is that of an...
Kenneth Williams, why...
Deviation. We're not discussing advertisements, we're talking about surf
But
riding.
you've
So
probably
all
just
deviation.
say
So
that
I
this-
think that best news to give the subject to media and I'll talk about it.
If you win it legitimately, you will have it. But until you do, the subject will stay with the person who has got it. On this occasion was Peter Jones, because he hadn't yet reached the advertisement, what was in it. And there are 55 seconds, Peter. Continue surf riding, starting now.
It featured a picture of a New South Wales lifeguard who was standing on a surfboard and holding a Christmas pudding, and he was advertising Australian dried fruit, sultanas, currants, and the like. And later on in the year, this picture was changed or adapted to advertise other... I'm actually hesitating here. Nobody apparently has noticed it.
Yes, they have. We all noticed it, but including the
I
audience.
thought they were dropping off for a moment. I noticed Clement's eyes closed. It's always rather
When
difficult.
his eyes close, that's when he's thinking.
Ah,
He
yes.
actually pressed his buzzer at that particular moment, and Clement, you
You
challenge.
mustn't let them
Deviation.
intimidate you.
Deviation, why?
From surf riding, he was talking about hesitation.
That's right. He's gone even one further from the hesitation he went on to talk about. So, Clement, you have a point, and there are 34 seconds for surf riding, starting now.
There is only a limited amount of surf in this country, but a great deal of riding. Even jockeys on discs seem to...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. Disc jockeys have nothing to do with surf riding.
No, but I think it established the fact he was going on from surf riding and talking
No,
about other
subject is
types of
surf riding, not riding, dear.
I know, but a disc jockey might even surf ride, and you were talking about riding, and he was comparing surf riding and other types of riding. He hadn't deviated sufficiently yet to be way off the subject. And so there are 25 seconds left for surf riding with Clement Freud, starting now.
And horsebound Liberal members of Parliament wishing to engage in this pursuit have to go to Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, yay Tasmania.
Sheila Hancock's challenger, why?
They don't. They can go to Roehampton. If you're talking about surf riding. You're not.
They can
Yeah.
go to...
Scurf riding.
In Roehampton.
Stop cursing your ear, you great nit.
Have you been to Roehampton?
No, I haven't.
Well,
What's so
actually-
special about Roehampton? Why have they got scurf there anyway?
it's the atmosphere.
Oh, I see. I had no idea.
Actually, Sheila, the thing was, he
Every
said
time they go-
they go there. They don't
Yes.
have to go there. So he wasn't, strictly speaking, deviating from the subject on the card of surf riding. So Clement has
But he
another
said they
point,
have
and there are 14 seconds left, starting now.
One day in Hobart, or to be more accurate, one afternoon on the outskirts of that city, I put on my bathing dress and got a piece of wood known as a board and lay upon this the hair on my chest.
Well, Clement Freud's surf riding has taken him into a lead of quite a commanding lead over all the others at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. The subject, happenings. Many you often create for us most spontaneously and enjoyably, but can you talk about them for just a minute, starting now?
Well, they are simply things which occur in the life and the business of humanity. I wouldn't regard them myself as having any special significance artistically, although I know there is a school of thought which maintains that the instant happening is in itself of intrinsic value, and they actually go as far as to stage such things. It's a load of old rubbish. The only art worth calling that name is the result of one man's vision, and depending on the richness of that vision, that is the kind.
Sheila Hancock got in first.
I would deviation. I dispute that it's always the result of one man's vision.
You could have got me on repetition because I said art twice, but the vision
vision.
you can't get me on, dear. You're hoist here with your own petard, out of your own mouth.
Leave it
out
to
of
the
your
judge.
own mouth, you think.
Well, actually, Sheila, you could have had him for repetition, I'd agreed, but the thing is, he was talking about happenings, and it can be the result of one man's
He said
inspiration.
the only definition of art is the result of one man's vision. Well, I would dispute that.
Well, it's a
lot of people
debatable
were
point. We could have spent the whole
responsible for
afternoon discussing it, so I'll put
The whole
that to the
afternoon,
audience.
you could.
All right, audience, such a difficult subject on which to make a decision, so you will be the final judges. If you agree with Sheila Hancock's challenge, would you cheer? And if you disagree with her challenge, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? The audience decided that you have a point, Kenneth, and you keep the subject. 15 seconds, happenings starting now.
One happened to me in a restaurant when this fella said, "You're worse off than you are on. Thank you for a great disappointment." And exited in a cloud of aftershave and talcum powder, leaving me most
Clement Freud is
discomforted.
challenged. Why? Why do you
sir.
challenge? What?
Oh, what's the matter with you now?
Kenneth, sit down.
I've come all the way from King's Cross and treated like a load of rubbish.
Kenneth, we know you're exhausted. Just sit down, rest yourself. You may have to go back to King's Cross afterwards. He came in 1 second beforehand because he was
Sorry,
trying
no, I
very
didn't at
hard.
all. It
Well, you
was-
pressed your buzzer.
Yes,
Ken.
indeed, it was a
And it
mistake.
means that Kenneth Williams has
Good,
another
I would
point
like him
and
to
1
have another
second
mistake.
left. And
Give
Clement
him
Freud is
another.
challenged again.
Yes. I want him to win.
When Kenneth wins, he wins legitimately. And we have 1 second for you on happenings now, Kenneth, starting now.
Well, there's very little I can say in that amount of time.
At the end of that round, Kenneth Williams leapt forward from 4th place into 3rd place.
Oh, he eggs you on to think something good, and then he lets you down.
Alongside Sheila Hancock. Clement Freud is still in the lead. Clement, your turn to begin. The subject, hokum. Can you talk to us about hokum for 60 seconds, starting now?
Hokum is an expression given to denote something which is untrue, quite often dishonest, and as frequently as not, a confidence trick of some kind. For instance, if a salesman of vacuum cleaners attempts to get into your house by putting his foot into the door and refusing to let go when you push, and then throws a bag of flour onto the carpet, promising that with the aid of a few simple devices such as a tulip and a daffodil, not to mention a radiogram, he can refit the entire staircase with linoleum. That could well be said to be on the side of hokum. But using that very word, I'm reminded of a friend of mine who was called Ephraim K. Hokum.
Peter Jones, why have you challenged?
Deviation. He was talking about this subject reminding him of something else. He actually said it. That reminds me of a friend of mine.
Yeah,
he said.
called Ephraim E. Hokum.
What's the name
And
of
you see,
the
the point is, Peter, in this game, providing he keeps going, which is jolly difficult, you know, when you've got three other people breathing down your neck with buzzers in their hands, and doesn't
Yes,
deviate...
I've never
or-
managed it yet.
That's deviation. That's deviation too. Nobody's breathing down anybody's neck.
You breathe down Clement Freud's neck regularly. It's jolly difficult for you
Well,
to keep
Sheila
that.
Hancock certainly hasn't breathed down mine.
Ah, well, maybe if she did, it would. Anyway, he wasn't deviating from the subject of hokum, so he has a point, and there are 5 seconds left, Clement, starting now.
He lived not far from the shore in a mansion called Shea Hokum, where many a great...
Clement Freud started with the subject of hokum, finished with hokum, and it really was hokum.
Throughout, yes.
And just increases lead by 2 at the end of that round. Sheila, your turn to begin. The subject for you is keeping a book. A very wide range of thought, probably that will give you, but will you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
I believe this is something to do with horses, but I'm not going to venture any opinion on that. I have a book which I keep regularly. In fact, I couldn't exist without it. It's a sort of diary. On one side, it says things to do today, and on the other side, it is the same things.
Clement Freud got in first.
reputation of things.
Yes, and side as well, I'm afraid, Sheila. So, Clement, you have a point, and there are 41 seconds for keeping a book, starting now.
One of the best ways of keeping a book is on a race course. You enter all bets on one side, and on the opposing page, you fill in such transactions upon which you are likely to lose money. And yet, this pastime is known as making a book. Quite recently, because so many people lost
Kenneth
their
Williams, why have you
shirts.
challenged?
Well, deviation. There's no making a book. It's not subject, which is keeping a book.
Only
isn't it?
recently.
It's deviation. It's subject.
He
is
was
keeping.
still keeping to the subject of keeping a book, and he was giving an illustration, actually, of a variation of this idea and what it means to other people. So I can't really agree with the challenge, Kenneth. And there are 18 seconds for Clement to continue keeping a book, starting now.
If you go to a public library and do the subject on the card, you're liable to a number of fines which mount from 2p for the first week in which you fail to return the volume in question to some great significant quantitative amount like...
So Clement Freud was not only keeping a book, he was keeping going in spite of challenges, and he's increased his lead again at the end of that round. And Peter Jones, it is your turn. The subject is things to do in a train. I don't know what prompted Ian Messiter to think of that subject, but I'm sure you can talk to us about it for 60 seconds, starting now.
First of all, you must make certain that the train is not standing in a station. After that, you can let the imagination have full rein, depending on the number of passengers there are traveling with you in the compartment. If there are 2, then a small game of cards would be quite appropriate. If the numbers are greater than that, then naturally the type of game has more possibilities.
Kenneth Williams, you'll challenge. Why?
Game twice.
Yes, I'm afraid there was more than one game going on in that compartment. We must travel with you sometime, Peter. 32 seconds left for you, Kenneth, having gained a point, and the subject. Things to do in a train, starting now.
Well, if you get in the train of the gown of the bride, it can be quite an experience. I did this when I was a very small boy with an innocent, chubby little face and golden ringlets falling over my eyes, which, as you can see, are Mediterranean blue. And they all said, "What's he doing under there?" Getting there in his little velvet suit, which was how I got mixed up with those trains in the first place.
Well, Kenneth Williams, I'm sure, has given all the naughty boys who listen to our program many thoughts about what to do at the next wedding they go to. Kenneth, you were speaking when the whistle went, you gained the extra point, and you have crept up into second place, but you're still quite a distance behind our leader, who is still Clement Freud. And, Clement Freud, your turn to begin. On being very serious. That is the subject, which we feel you should be able to talk about well, and just a minute will do, starting now.
When you have twice the score of those around you, and Kenneth Williams is asleep by your right-hand side, it is difficult to be anything but very serious. And yet I shall try. A man came up to another man and said, hello,
Kenneth Williams,
I have a
Two
conundrum.
men.
There were two men, yes. Very close to each
I
other,
thought
too.
he was asleep. I would never...
He was trying you out. Kenneth, you have a point, and there are 42 seconds for on being serious. On being very serious, starting now.
Well, of course, it was Cicero who had the last word on this subject when he said, to be truly idle is to be industrious. And here I think one has a quality of deep consideration insofar as seriousness of mind is concerned. If we address ourselves most essentially...
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Hesitation. He seemed to be grinding to a halt altogether. Like a sort of gramophone that should be wound up, it sounded.
So quiet, I can hardly hear whether he had ground to a halt or not.
I think he's doing that on purpose.
You think so? I don't know. He kept going, but he was going very slowly. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Peter Jones and say you have 21 seconds, Peter, on being very serious, starting now.
Sometimes the most amusing, witty, and comical clowns can be very serious indeed.
How true, how true, that is true. How very true that is.
Keep going, Peter. You've been interrupted.
What, is he allowed to interrupt?
No, of course he's not.
Well, it's like bumping and boring.
Yes, it's not a game of dodgem.
But he ought to be warned off altogether by the stewards. It's not fair, no.
You've been warned off the
down.
course. You've been warned off the course. The penalty is you mustn't interrupt a game for at least 5 seconds.
Kenneth has got his comeuppance with Peter, hasn't he?
Comeuppance? What's that mean?
He's never been challenged for hesitating so much in his life.
Oh, you've got to yield to me afterwards.
So, I must tell you that we have very little time left for the show, and I actually said it was 20 seconds left. There were only... there were 20 seconds left when I said... I'm so sorry. I was quite correct before. I'm getting rather confused. Peter Jones has another point for a false challenge, and there are 8 seconds for you to continue, Peter, on being very serious, starting now.
I wouldn't say that it is exactly an art form, but it is a knack which can be learned if you take lessons and have tuition for...
Well, at the end of that round, Peter Jones is speaking when the whistle went, so he gained the extra point. And also, as I said a little while ago, I'm afraid we have no more time left, so we have to finish the game there. And the final result was that Sheila Hancock, after doing so well last week, trailed a little this week and was in 4th place. Peter Jones finished in 3rd place. Kenneth Williams now in 2nd place, behind this week's winner, who is Clement Freud. Sorry that we have no more time for just a minute. We do hope that you've enjoyed this particular edition of the game. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.